Okay, we're live for an impromptu, informal discussion about evolution with a rational empiricist, which I'll call Andrew for unknown reasons. And Scott, about your pine points, I don't know what the fuck a pine point is, but I've been trying to figure it out. If you find out where I can get some pine points, I don't know what the fuck a pine.
You're echoing.
Yeah, I know, echoing. Okay. If I can buy some pine points somewhere, like at Walmart or Sam's Club, I'll be glad to give everybody pine points. I mean, no problem.
Are you talking about like pine needles, or what the heck are pine points?
No, Pine Creek gives pine points to the first person that shows up in chat.
Oh.
And Scott wants pine points, and I don't know what the fuck they are. Speed bumps. Yeah, I could give out speed bumps.
Speed bumps.
I don't know how he keeps track of his pine points, though. We gotta figure that out. Anyway,
is he like a YouTuber or something?
Yeah, he does really, really good content. He's got a lot of followers.
Oh, cool.
He does a whole lot of stuff, so it's pretty good. I'm gonna try to keep an eye on chat.
Yeah.
I just make stupid remarks from chat. Okay, that's fair. Okay, so anyway, you had some things you wanted to talk about, and we wanted to kind of keep it down to just the two of us and maybe Erika.
Yeah,
so that we don't get so off topic. So
yeah,
as we usually do. But go ahead and roll. What do you get?
Okay. Well, I think recently we talked about like certain examples of, I guess, what like the question of information in terms of how creationists see it, and if they can even answer the question of the definition of information.
Yeah.
So like I remember I showed you guys the example that, like, I don't know why I'm fixated on this particular example of the scute gene in Drosophila, just because it's so freaking interesting.
Okay.
And
of course I forgot half of what we talked about with that.
Okay. Should I say it again then?
Yeah, go ahead. Bring it up.
So basically the scute gene, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but like the scute gene controls bristle number in different species of Drosophila. So like the species that the particular study that I looked at kind of focused on Drosophila santamea, I think it's called, in terms, or in comparison to its cousins Drosophila jacoba. I'm probably getting all these names incorrect. I'm not good with names.
Yeah, it's fine.
But like the scute gene controls bristle number, and this particular enhancer on the scute gene controls is pleiotropic. It controls different traits, more than one trait, in that it controls the expression of bristles on the near the abdomen, the genitalia of the fly, and it also controls expression of bristles.
Oh, hold on. You go ahead.
Oh, and it also controls expression of bristles on what are called sex combs near the forelegs of the fruit fly. And what I find interesting about the scute gene is that it a specific substitution mutation, which I believe changed a T thymine to a G guanine in this particular enhancer, caused both a change in the number of bristles on the genitalia of D. santamea and a change in the number of bristles on the forelegs, the sex combs. And what's interesting is that this particular mutation, because the enhancer it affected was pleiotropic, the number of bristles in the genitalia decreased, whereas the number of bristles on the forelegs increased. And so I don't know if this is probably the most relevant example of how creationists would try to define information or gain or loss of information.
Right.
It's probably a beneficial mutation, and it definitely alters morphology, but I don't know I mean, that's, I guess, my question to them. How would they define information in this case? What counts as the loss and what counts as a potential gain?
What they would count as information is if it basically grew a new wing and the new wing started to function. So they're talking about like some functional body part pops up.
Right.
Now, if you look at Arthropoda, and if you look at those segments and all the different legs that pop out, like legs and wings and all of that pop out of those segments,
right?
Okay, they would define basically evolution as, or new information as something that created something new that actually did something for the organism. So, but they never actually say that. But I'm pretty sure that that's what they mean. So more hairs, they would say, oh, that's just an addition of number or whatever. And what they're not quite getting is that if you were to create a new appendage on an insect or a crab, and I knew a little bit more about what these things were, and I wish I'd had the notes, but there are a lot of there are a lot of arthropods that have appendages sticking out of these segments, and in some crab-like creatures, every single segment has a unique apparatus. Like one will be for stabilizing, and one will be for swimming backwards, and one will be for swimming forward. Another will be for sensing. Another will be for eating. Right. And so they're looking for a brand new function like that.
Well, like you're talking about like the modularization of those specific traits, right? Like the different appendages and segments and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like little, they're basically. I remember like a show that depicted it like it's basically like little pieces of Play-Doh where you like sculpt it basically, and each piece becomes that part of the body essentially.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead.
I wasn't going to. Yeah, they define everything in terms of function. So they're looking for a novel function. So now think about what they're asking for. Okay, we have been pretty much tracking these things for about 150 years,
right?
And not very well until about maybe 50 years ago. And now we're doing even better in that we're capturing genomes. So we've been capturing genomes of insects since about 2010. That's only 10 years, right?
Right.
So we're capturing more and more of these genomes as it gets cheaper to sequence. So what they're looking for is they're looking for something that's going to happen over like an epoch of 100 years at the very minimum. I think it is possible for a new function to develop within 100 years in a rapidly reproducing population like insects. But it is so we have to wait until 2110 before we can even start looking for the rare example where we're going to catch that. And what they would do is they would have some species that they have cataloged, right? And that they've got the genome for in 2010. And then in 2110, 100 years from now, they find another species which has an appendage, say a little sensor that grew out of some part of the head, and a sensor that actually made a difference, that did something. And they would say, oh, this is a new species. Well, then they would compare the genomes, and they would find the genes that were modified between those two things that created that. So now in 2110, we'll have something to jam down their throats. So when they ask this question, they are being really stupid, ignorant, unfair, and disingenuous.
Well, like
because how we go ahead.
Sorry. Well, like I just remembered what I was gonna say. Like, isn't it the like you know the specific species of beetles, horn beetles, basically. Like, I think it's like a particular gene called Distillus. that's usually expressed in the legs, the segments of the legs, is actually expressed in those modified pieces of the head, the skull, or
Right.
well, not really skull, but like the same gene is co-opted in that part of the body, and now it's become the horns, basically. Like, how is so like that's another example of, would they define that as new information, or would they define that as old information being scrambled up, or whatever nonsense they talk about?
Okay, run that by me again.
Okay. So there's a gene called distillus that's
Okay.
expressed in insects, and in fact, I think all bilaterians probably, where it controls expression of the legs, or probably specific segments of the legs. But like the same gene, I think there were studies that showed the same distillus gene was now being expressed and co-opted in the horns of certain beetle species, like the rhinoceros beetle or the Darwin's beetle or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's now being used for mating displays in courtship battles. So how is that modification of old information, or is that new information by their terms? Like that's another case where I don't think they'd have a clear answer.
Right. They would have something to say about that. Basically, that that was God's ingenious plan to use one type of nail for two different structures or something like that. But what they're not understanding is how these modifications actually happen embryologically, and they're never going to admit that until you show them in utter detail the steps that go from one thing to another. Like this hypothetical insect that appears in 2110, right?
Right.
They would have to see that insect at 2130, 2170, 2180, 90, and then in 2110. And they would have to see the steps about how it got there, and we'd have to capture the genome every bit of the way. Now, who in the hell is going to fund that research? And how are we going to come? Because what we're looking for is something that basically an anomaly that pops up on an insect that doesn't really do anything, like one of those segments, a little bud, like a little bump, like a bud, and it doesn't seem to do anything, but it manages to hang around because of just the way genetics works. So it's like a neutral mutation. It doesn't harm anything. Doesn't increase any function. And then at some point, it modifies so that it becomes neurulated, and it grows hairs, or maybe it had hairs all along, or it grew hairs somewhere intermediately. And these hairs are basically attached to these neurons, and they give information to the bug about something that becomes important for its survival. And then we have a genetic sweep where in this particular population, the insects with that adaptation manage to outproduce the other ones, and it takes over the entire population. And now we have a new species. So they're going to call what I just said a fantasy, just a story, whatever. But the thing is, I haven't said anything that isn't possible with genes and embryos and biochemistry. I mean, all of this. Go ahead.
Well, that's, I mean, like, their claim is that it's impossible. So if you show that it is possible in some theoretical way, that destroys their claim. That's the whole reason for lineage explanations being used for like irreducible complexity, like the eye or the immune system or what have you.
Yeah. And we can show them all those steps, but they're still not accepting it. And in fact, when they ask that question, can you show me an example of a new leg popping out of an insect? Okay, the way they phrase it is disingenuous. Yeah. That we cannot show them. What we can show them is how it's possible. We can show them the steps, but they never ask those. They never ask that question. Then they never ask you to show them the steps that make it possible.
I don't think they realize that what they're asking for is actually something that would show their model more so than evolutionary models.
Explain.
Like a single leg popping out of existence from some part of the body, like
Right.
where
Yeah.
it didn't come from some pre-existing structure, would be an anomaly that would
Creationism.
creationism essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, that would surprise the hell out of us if it just happened all at once. A leg just appeared in this population.
Now I want to note there's a difference between that and using a co-opted gene to make something like that, like the Antennopedia gene, making the legs on the where the antennas should be for fruit flies. Well,
Yeah.
that's not exactly the same, because they're asking for a completely new gene, essentially. Like, they don't phrase it like this, but they're asking for a new body part coming from new genes, basically, where it doesn't have a genetic precursor, and that's not what we expect.
Yeah. And there is a possibility that one simple modification could create a new appendage, say behind the wings, that so there was a fully developed system for creating that little sensor in the head.
Right.
And then some very, very minor modification put it behind the wings, and that turned out to protect that insect from some predatory attack. And it was a real simple modification, so that could happen. But again, we'd have to be mapping genomes and watching these species develop, in the woods. I mean, you have any idea how hard it would be to keep track of the insects in just 1 acre of woods?
Yeah.
I mean, let alone have their genomes and keep taking their genomes as they mutated through, 100 years of, or more likely 100 or 1,000 years of development. I mean, this is just, so the only way to attack this problem is to attack it in steps and to show them that there is a pathway where this can happen over time. But we haven't been looking long enough. I mean, we just started this stuff.
Right. We have like a bunch of examples and snapshots of different stages of development, but like we don't have the whole picture, basically. Oh, what's that?
That's an Otangelo.
Oh, Otangelo's here.
Yeah, we're not going to let him in. We're not going to let anybody in. Let's see. Convergence is evolution of design. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
Convergence, evidence. Oh. So Otangelo, that would of course bring up the question of, you're going to use similar structures for evidence of design, of common design, basically, but like, what about different structure? Because like at some level everything is based on everything else, like in terms of anatomy, but like where do you draw the line exactly? If you're going to say like if everything is evidence of common design, then nothing is evidence of common design. You know what I mean, Speed?
Yep. Yeah, because, okay, now if we look at a bat's wings and we look at a fly's wings, Drosophila, and we look at bird wings, that is evidence of, he says, design. I don't see how it points directly to what it is. Evidence of is an atmosphere with a certain viscosity where that kind of a thing would work, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's evidence of an atmosphere.
Yeah. Hey, that led me to the other example I just thought of. I feel like flies, well, like probably the ancestor of flies had 2 pairs of wings, but now they only have 1 pair.
Yeah.
And I think the second pair of wings was actually modified into this little steering organ, and I forget what it's called, but like it helps it maneuver in the air and figure out which direction it's going, basically help it like an airplane. So that was pretty interesting.
Fly wings. Let me see here. I should know what these are called, but
Look them up. I'm interested. Like, I feel like halteres or something like that.
Halteres. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They just ended up being like little rudders that,
Yeah.
kind of increase the stability. They didn't need two wings.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, that probably didn't happen in a single step or a set of mutations, but like that's direct evidence that what they're saying is just disingenuous, and that we're not it's a straw man, basically. Like as much as they want to admit that it's not a straw man, they're basically creating a straw man.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what I find so astounding, is that, like, I mean, I don't want to be too rude or anything, but like I feel like if someone shows you an example of something, you need to modify your idea, basically. I mean, if it's a good example, of course, but we've shown tons of good examples. There is no evidence. What?
Yeah, but there is evidence that flight evolved.
Yeah.
The evidence isn't a picture of flight evolving or a movie of flight evolving. Otangelo, type into chat, what would be evidence of flight evolving for you? What would you have to see in order to see flight evolving, in order to believe that we have evidence of flight evolving?
And also, has Otangelo heard of the fossil Microraptor by any chance?
He probably has.
Like the steps are basically, you have feathers, you start to make them asymmetrical, make it useful for gliding, and then you develop the muscles needed to power those wings, and that's essentially it, simplistically at least.
Yeah, and then he'd probably say that's not evidence for some reason. But what is evidence, Otangelo? Tell us, what would be evidence of flight evolving? What would you have to see? Would it be one paper? Okay. But could you detail that for me? Let's see. Evolution is incapable of an incapable mechanism. Foresight. Okay, what would evidence look like? You're not telling me that. You give me another chat.
Answer the question.
Answer the question, Otangelo. What would be evidence? I don't know. I don't know what would see. Evidence for us is how things work, and being able to look at and infer how things may have happened in the past.
Right, so, like if evidence is saying this is what happened, this is not what happened, and that's not what you're showing, Otangelo. You're demonstrating facts. You're not demonstrating evidence.
There would be evidence if evolution would be an intelligent mechanism. What? No.
What is he saying?
No, I'm saying if there was no intelligence, how would you be convinced? What evidence would you need to convince you that it evolved naturally? What would you have to see?
He's not going to answer that.
Yeah, because he's not a scientist. That's a problem.
Yeah.
For me, the evidence is in how organisms develop, And
if you can answer one question, Otangelo, I'd be interested. I don't know if you were here for the beginning of the discussion, but like define what counts as a gain or loss of information in terms of the scute gene that I provided earlier. Like if you were here for that, let me know. I'm very curious. Because I don't feel like creationists have, like, they don't have a definition. You know what I mean?
No, they just want to try to make it look like we don't have something. So they keep asking us to provide them with things, but they never tell us quite what scientists support what I say. No, they don't, Otangelo. Most scientists do not support what you say, that evolution could not cannot be without forethought.
Otangelo, please stop making assertions and provide evidence. Provide papers. Yeah. What have you?
I'm trying to find something again now. I found it earlier and I lost it. I should have displayed it. What poses an unethical level of risk? Let me see here. It was about information. And it was encyclopedia. Okay, neurobiology. Nope, it's not going to be there. Damn, I lost it. That's too bad.
Hey, Speed, I just want to say I do appreciate our little chats here and there.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. I feel like it's more manageable when there's just 2 or 3 of us, or maybe 4, but like when it's hard to contribute when there's more people. No offense.
It gets, we tend to get off topic. Okay, let's see what Otangelo came up with. He's going to tell us now, right? Flight feathers are asymmetric, one side shorter than the other. Okay, you're still not telling us what information.
Again, he's giving facts. He's not providing evidence.
Yeah, you're not telling us what would be evidence of the evolution of flight. I want to know what you would accept as evolution of flight as a natural mechanism. You say we have no evidence. What would you accept?
Otangelo, I bet that quote came from either what's his name?
Starts with an F.
Yeah.
I got some of his books. He's the guy that's going on about, and what he's saying is that they evolved from a different branch.
Yeah, like a deeper branch in the Archosaur family tree.
Yeah, he's not saying that they.
There we go.
Fiducia, yeah, right. Okay, yep. Let's see. Lack of knowledge
is in terms of that behind the times.
So we can't test the theories, but you still haven't told us what would be evidence. If you're asking for evidence, then you must know what you want, right? You must know what evidence would be. Evidence of naturalistic evolution of flight. And all you're saying is that it's not adequate. Inadequate. Actually, what is inadequate about it? Natural mechanism.
I said, he's making assertions. He's not providing evidence.
How dense can you be that you won't tell us what you need? There's no observational support. Observational. Well, I don't know. I could ask my grandpa. He might have been there when the dinosaurs evolved.
Maybe.
But he's dead. I'm sorry, he's dead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Shit, yeah, grandpa died a long time ago when I was like 11. So I can't ask him. And
all he did was your great 1,000 times removed grandfather was probably like a monotreme or something. So maybe he was there.
No, they see me. No, they don't. I've come and gone. And I love to sweep around the wide step, cut a little swath and lead the people on. That's is that a song?
I don't know.
They're coming to take me away. Oh, have you heard that song? That's a great song.
I don't know. I mostly listen to like rock and stuff like that. So, yeah. Unfortunately,
there was a song back in the early '60s, and they had a bunch of joke songs like "Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini," and they had the Purple People Eater, and then they had this song called "They're Coming to Take Me Away." Oh ho, ha ha, and it was they had all these joke songs. I don't know. They got into like the top 40, so people apparently liked them, but. But anyway, that was back when paramedics were my spirit animal. Back when I was drinking a little too much.
Paramedics
used to be my spirit animal. Like every time I drank too much, I'd break out in paramedics. Or handcuffs. I'm allergic to alcohol. If I drink, I break out in handcuffs.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Anyway.
Any news on Erika, if I may ask?
She was just got back from a walk and she was getting ready. So muscle function, avia flight, achievement, power control by evolution. Okay, you're still not telling us what evidence you would accept. You asked for evidence.
Stop citing that same site over and over again.
Yeah, I know. Oh, let's see. To know where to attach the wings at the right place on the body is a huge achievement. Yeah, I'm guessing it is. No, we topped out. It doesn't seem like you care much about answering questions, Otangelo, and having a rational discourse. And that is a problem. So anyway, I think if we did start to trap, like if we took a 1-acre research project and we did an assay of all the insects and all the plants and whatever, and we got all of their genomes, as many as we possibly could. Of course, there's going to be about 3 million species of, bacteria out there, so we're not going to be able to get them all. But if we started doing that, we started watching it, we would see unique things popping up. Like I go out and I collect hundreds of bugs in a big plastic bag every summer, and I put them in the freezer and I put them under the microscope, and they have all kinds of strange halteres and wings and little appendages on each of these things. And they have remarkable head structures. Some of them look just like that thing in the Alien movies,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where their head seems to come out of another head and out of another head. And then it's like hooked around, and it's like, what? And the chances are very good that I'm looking at some insects that haven't even been classified. Because,
Probably.
if you just go on randomly. So we need to do an assay, and we need to get the genomes. And then we need to observe these populations through time. And that project would be funded to the probably $1 billion or so for the next, 100 years. So wouldn't be asking.
That reminds me of another example. When you talked about the jaws, aren't like moth or butterfly, like the little proboscis basically is just like the two jaws, the two mandibles, kind of like stuck together, like they're folded together essentially. I don't know, just another random example.
Yeah, and then when you look back in the fossil record, jaws developed, or the lower jaw developed from gills.
Yeah, that's the big one out there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And seeing how that happens. When you study embryology, you can find the mechanism for that to happen. I mean, It's pretty obvious. It's just that if you were to work out the math involved in the development of the Drosophila from an egg to a fly, it would be way beyond anything we could possibly work out in detail. There's just too many equations.
I feel like since we have so many precursor structures for other structures out there, like this whole accumulation of homologies, basically, like there's no denying that that's evidence of some kind of common ancestry, of some kind of change going on there. But the thing is, they say that's the same evidence for creation. So what would be the counter evidence? Like you'd have to do some research into R.N. Raw's phylogeny challenge or something like that, or show how, like, it kind of gets to the problem, like you have to show magic basically. And how is that possible?
Yeah. Oh, hang on a second here. Otangelo asked me a question, but anyway, I'm going to yell at Otangelo right now. I'm going to yell at him in text.
Okay.
Okay. I used all caps, which I guess is you kids' way of yelling these days. Yeah. I use my big daddy voice. I wish I could have bolded it. Bold and red would have been good, with a vicious thing. But he asked me if I studied development. Yes, I have.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's kind of obvious.
Oh my God, what happened? It did it again, didn't it? It froze me.
No. Yeah, it did.
That's me on the phone. What the hell? Talking to my sister, looking like, what?
I think it's a sign from the StreamYard God.
He says he answered. When did he answer? No, you didn't answer. You didn't tell us what evidence would work.
You didn't answer any of the questions.
You didn't answer our question. We want to know, what evidence would you accept to prove that wings developed naturalistically? What would that evidence look like? If you answered, please copy the answer down below here, because I missed it.
Yeah.
And I thought I was looking at
In other words, what would show evolution happened and you were wrong, basically.
Yeah.
That's one way of putting it.
And he keeps stating that evolution is wrong. That's his evidence. That's not the evidence that you would accept.
Evolution is wrong because evolution is wrong.
Did I miss his answer? What the hell did he answer? Okay, lol. I deny entirely evolution is incapable to know where to attach rings.
Again, evolution is wrong because evolution is wrong.
Hey, David Laurie Hayes. He's going to change his name someday.
Wait, who?
Laurie Hayes is I believe. Okay, I don't think I'm giving anything away if I call him David. He uses wife's account, I think, or something, or email, which is a frequent problem. We have all these people in meetings that I attend on Zoom that that have their wives' names. I wasn't Beaver will be a monkey. It doesn't answer the question, Otangelo. What is the evidence? What is the evidence? If there were evidence that evolution is intelligent and has foresight, we would talk. I don't know what that means.
Why aren't you giving us the evidence?
You won't tell us what evidence you would accept. Now, the evidence that I would accept is the evidence of developmental biology. And yes, I do study developmental biology. I tried to hold up the two books that are sitting open on my desk right now. But it's a dense field. Drosophila. It's kind of cool. Like,
oh yeah.
And there's a whole lot of stuff. Like the egg itself has a lot of basically mRNA in it from the mother. So it comes from the mother's genome. And there's something called bicoid, basically, which is, for some reason, because of the way the egg develops, it is at the anterior or the front of the egg. Right. So this bicoid is at the front of the egg. And all through the entire cell, so basically there's a gradient from one side of the egg to the other. Yeah. And there are all kinds of filaments and actin fibers and microfilaments inside the egg that keep it sort of so it seeps across the egg in a gradient. Okay, and that's bicoid. And then there is something called caudal, which develops throughout the entire egg, except bicoid suppresses it. So basically, it is produced more toward the posterior end of the egg. But that doesn't make a difference until the egg starts dividing. Yeah. So when the egg divides, what happens is it's called syncytial. It forms all kinds of, the nuclei divide, but the whole cell doesn't. So it ends up with an egg with about 1,000 different nuclei in it. And those all migrate to the outside of the egg, to the outer edges of that, that little capsule, that pill. And then they form cell walls around themselves. But before they do, there is this expression of genes that leak out into the whole cell. And then they start to differentiate. So you have this field from anterior to posterior of basically different competing proteins in different gradients. Right. And like from that, the segments develop.
Right. It's basically like you're organizing the body before you even have a body, and then it starts to specialize all the body parts.
Yeah. If you were, if bicoid were blue and caudal were red, then it would be, you'd see shades of purple in between. And depending on what shade it is, it will turn on another set of genes. Like if it's at 30-70. It'll turn on one set of genes, but it's that 70-30 be an entirely different set of genes, and that creates the different segments. And these little discs form all along the anterior posterior axis. And then if you look the other way, the what is it? Ventral dorsal. Okay, the ventral dorsal axis. The back or the belly back axis. There's another axis, and then there's another one that's the third dimension, and you'll find a gradient along that, and then you'll find another dimension, which is time. So as we go through time, the amount of ingredients in your cake will change. So you end up with all kinds of different cakes, developing all along. And then it starts to do really interesting things like it folds in, like it'll start growing faster at the top of the cells than it does at the bottom of the cells. And it will create like an invagination or a little circle. It'll start to fold into a little hollow tube. And then the top will close, and now we have a neural tube, which forms it.
Oh, did you know that the main developmental difference between protostomes and deuterostomes is which, like you were saying, which hole basically develops first, either the mouth or the anus. And so, unfortunately, as Aaron Ra once put it, we are all anus holes, because that's how we develop.
We're all assholes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always and I think I've said this online before, but my sons are twins, and at one point the egg developed, and one of them became the asshole, and the other one.
No.
I actually told my son that, but he takes it well. One of the twins is a little more dominant than the other, and so we always, he always took the asshole role. So anyway,
one sec. My phone keeps beeping, so I'm gonna bring it over here for a sec.
Okay, ask it what it wants. Okay, let's see what directs that process of migration on morphogens, which use no, they don't use instructional information. It's a chemical reaction.
Yes, exactly.
Morphogen.
My phone keeps beeping because I keep getting stuff graded for class.
Oh, Scott Duke, evolution should have to be an intelligent. Why should it have to be? So you're begging the question. You're just assuming your conclusion. That is what's wrong with you. And you still haven't told us what evidence would convince you. Here we go. Scott Duke stated a question to Otangelo. Feathered flight as opposed to intelligent design. Oh, looks like I was wrong. Yeah, what would do that?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Scott Duke.
That's an interesting question. What is signaling? Signaling is the fitting of one protein or molecule of some sort onto another.
Right. It's like it's two proteins going boop.
And it makes a conformational change. And sometimes these the receptor basically it runs across a cell membrane, basically, and it will make a conformational change if something attaches to the outside of the cell membrane to that protein. It'll make a conformational change on the inside. And that's how a big class of just thousands of proteins called decoupled receptors work. And that's how your smell works. And now there's an interesting one right there. Decoupled protein receptors, GPCRs. They have this special helix that crosses 7 times across the membrane. And if something attaches to the outside of that, like it'll have a certain shape on the outside, and a certain chemical will attach to it. And it'll create a change where one of those alpha helices pulls up a little bit, and it'll make a change on the inside of the cell. So now we have information going from an alcohol molecule made that change. So this thing is specific for an alcohol molecule, okay? Right. So now all of a sudden you can smell alcohol because it'll fire a neuron, okay? So now if the outside of that starts to mutate, any mutation that it does, it'll form different shapes. And now say there's a flower in your environment that happens to lead you to food, at a really high rate. So I mean, it's always attached to this really good fruit that's really beneficial to you. And we have a random mutation that takes one of the molecules from that flower and signals to the inside of the cell, hey, a rose is present. So now I can smell roses. So it's very easy to see the evolutionary addition of different smells Like we have, what, 10,000 of them? St. Bernards have about 1 million.
Bears
You know,
have
there's no, yeah.
Well, like that gets into the topic of duplication, which is another mechanism.
Go beyond genetic information?
Then
No,
why are you using
not
genetic
really.
information in the first place?
Go beyond, yeah. Where do they get this information from? Like in a Drosophila? Okay.
Yeah.
Establishing an animal body plan depends on many mechanisms. Yes, we understand development. You don't have to teach us biology. Developing cells have a vocabulary. No, they don't. They don't talk to each other. They don't have dictionaries. They don't have Bibles. They're just cells.
You're literally describing a chemical interaction.
Yeah, I think so. Cell gap junctions. Yes, cell gap junctions. There's all kinds of junctions in cells. And there are all sorts of different paracrine and endocrine and autocrine and juxtacrine signaling things. So yes, we know all about that. Cell gap junctions are not, cell gap junctions are not the only ones. They have some control. He read about those and he thought they were exciting. There are some cells that actually butt up against each other. They form these cell gap junctions, and they can communicate very, very quickly with each other. And that is important in development. But there's also paracrine, basically where a cell will exude some chemical and it will go for just, in fact, bicoid works like that. It'll go for just a short distance. And so if another cell is close to it, it'll get the signal. And then there's autocrine, which actually where cells actually kind of communicate with themselves. Right. And there's let's see, juxtacrine is what he's talking about. The cells have to be right butted up against each other, otherwise they can't affect each other. And
then you have hormones in the endocrine system, right?
Yeah. And then I think is endocrine it would be a more of a long distance thing. Endocrine is being transmitted in through some mechanism. So there's all of these different, but I mean, there's many different methods. And also there's all these extracellular fibers that grow and pathways that form, like, if you can imagine, you have these little cells sitting in a kind of a cotton. Okay. And the cotton can be variable. So if they exude something, sometimes the cotton blocks, part of the chemical. Sometimes it allows more through. So there's all these differences in extracellular matrices or matrix that affect development. And like I say, development is so complex. I read an entire book on it, and I have to read the entire book again because the complexities make it almost impossible to remember all of that. So,
yeah, I think.
Okay. I'm waiting for Otangelo to answer a question.
Yeah. Hoping Erika.
Okay, well, he's still telling us about morphogens that permit the formation of specific patterns of gradients. We just talked about that, Otangelo. We're talking about bicoid and caudal. These regulate development. The fish and the bird, or there's a general importance. Tissue mechanics, yes. Tissue mechanics, don't get me started on that. Do you play computer games?
Not many.
Good. There's hope for the human race, Andrew. There's one of you that don't fucking play games 12 hours a day. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, no.
Computer games have something called a physics engine.
Okay.
And I have been looking for a soft body physics engine that allows stickiness. Okay. Like these physics engines that they write, you can program them to represent gravity. And, when you throw something at somebody, it hits them with a certain impact. That's how they build games. Well, they have soft body physics engines where basically you can have a bouncing ball. It'll bounce and it'll squeeze a little bit when it bounces, and then bounce up and hit another ball. And they're soft bodies, so they're kind of like rubber, right? Okay. But in order to in order for me to create a game of embryology or cell developing, I would need a soft body physics engine with stickiness. And so I could create extracellular matrices, and I could put glycogens on the surface of the cells so they stuck to each other. Because some things are sticky and some things aren't.
Right. It's a combination.
Yeah, like you'll have a layer of cells, this ectoderm or mesoderm, like a mesoderm, right? So there'll be a layer of cells that are stuck together. And then at some point, these cells will grow and a piece will get sort of pushed out into like another, like an invagination. And then it will do something called endothelial to mesenchymal translation, EMT. There's the EMTs again. So anyway, they'll quit sticking together and they start to float apart. And then these things form your organs, and they go to various spots, and then they're on that gradient, so they start to differentiate into different organs. And it starts out with this EMT reaction, epidermal to mesenchymal. It's called mesenchymal when the cells are kind of floating around separate. They're not sticky.
So you're saying they kind of bud off from the ectoderm, basically? Yeah.
They butt off, and then they separate. They fall apart. They just lose their stickiness, and then they start to migrate into different positions, and they do all sorts of remarkable things. There's a reverse thing that happens where these cells will start to stick together again.
Okay.
And maybe, they could form your liver or your kidneys or whatever. And then there's these branching patterns that form the, alveoli of your lungs and your veins and all of that. And it's just wonderful to watch how these things develop. And it's not as complicated as you would think. I mean, it doesn't require information, reading a blueprint and saying, oh, I need a vein here and I got to make a branch. I got to make a right turn here and I got to make a left turn there. It's not like that at all. It's just a couple of simple rules. Hang on a second. Okay. I ordered breakfast. Are you still with me? Yeah, breakfast. I don't know why my son is ordering breakfast at 4:30 p.m., but he is. So I ordered breakfast. Anyway, so let's see what's happening. Morphogens play a crucial role in specification of sulfates. They contribute to many aspects. Okay, so why are you not giving us this evidence we asked for? Why are you not answering our question?
I don't think he has it.
Physiological signaling. He's just telling us how he's just repeating the stuff that we've been talking about.
Yes, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so yesterday we created 2 forums, and they're not public yet. One of them is called Answers in Atheism, and the other one is called Science and Naturalism Now. And Answers in Atheism is going to have probably feature Otangelo and other creationists, only we have better names for them, but we're not going to use those names. But anyway, so it's going to be about creationists and creationist memes, Answers in Atheism. And then the other site, Science and Naturalism Now, is going to be a place where you or anybody else could come in and like submit an article like Otangelo's doing. In fact, I'm using the same software Otangelo's using on Cat's board. And so we're going to try to create some science content. And then after that, we open it up to discussion so anybody can, for pages and pages, people can sit and fight about all this. And the important part is, so John said God would be evidence of naturalism.
Wait, what?
I'm guessing that, yeah, Don Peterson. So anyway, the hope is that we can put out some good content and have a place where people can put articles with everything linked. So if you have a quote from a paper, it'll be in a block and it'll be linked. And if it isn't done properly, we'll delete it. So we're going to moderate this, so that everything is linked, so it doesn't become a mess, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So evidence, okay, instructional information is always the produce of a mind. I don't think so. Leophilius.
That you're not demonstrating that.
Yeah. I don't know if Erika is going to join us or not. She probably bailed us. She's always so busy.
Yeah.
She does a lot of stuff.
Did she say anything recently?
Nope. She was just going to hop in 30 minutes. Have we been on for 30 minutes? We've been on for 55.
Maybe text her one more time.
Oh my goodness. It's like you speak her name and she just like appears.
Oh crud! Hold on, I've got the thing in the background. I'm always doing that. What's going on?
Well, we just said your name 2 minutes ago and you appeared.
I suppose you summoned me.
I guess we did.
No, I am not appealing to magic.
Yeah.
Hey, we can appeal to magic just this once.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thanks for joining us, Erika. It's a pleasure to have you on again.
Yeah, what's going on?
We were talking about developmental biology and some of the going through some of the gradients and all the different things that tissues do in order to go from egg to a human being or whatever.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Or an ape. And we were talking about that, and the whole time Otangelo was telling us how morphogens work and how they require intelligence. And then we asked what's really going on is we asked, okay, Otangelo said we have no evidence of the evolution of wings. And so we asked Otangelo, I think a dozen times now, what he would accept as evolution of the naturalistic evolution of wings. And all he tells us is God did it. And
wait, the evolution of wings, you mean that thing that we can see step by step in the fossil record, and
that's what I said.
And that thing that we can also induce to a degree in the lab?
I don't think he believes that's evidence, but so I was asking him, what is evidence? If you don't accept that we have evidence, for Otangelo is special, and he needs special evidence, but he won't tell us what it is.
Okay, I see.
So
yeah,
we're trying to get him to tell us what would you accept?
Yeah, that's a really rough one. I found that particularly with large scale morphologic stuff, you can never really get very many creationists to actually say what would count, because to do so would put themselves at immense risk for seeing or being shown that thing that they said couldn't happen.
Right.
So.
Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Well, since you're here, Erika, if it's okay with speed, I'd like to have your opinion on this specific example that I'm kind of fond of repeating again, because I feel like it's a good example of morphological evolution, where basically a gene in Drosophila called scoot, I don't know how to pronounce it, controls the number of bristles in Drosophila santomea and its relatives, and a specific enhancer, probably more than one, but this specific enhancer is pleiotropic and affects more than one trait, and that affects the expression of bristles both in the forelegs and the genitalia of the fruit fly.
Okay.
And basically a mutation that I believe changed a T to a G, I think. It caused an increase in the number of bristles on the forelegs, but a decrease in the number in the genitalia. And so I'm trying to see if any creationist can answer this, define which counts as a gain and which counts as a loss of information? Because this was a single mutation as far as I can tell. So
yeah, I'm trying to find the paper.
Yeah.
Did you had a paper, right, at some point?
yeah, I feel like I emailed you it. It's
Yeah,
probably
no.
down in there.
Like,
It's like I don't think it has a subject, but it should be. I think I emailed you it.
for me, ancient history is like Monday.
Oh yeah.
Like, I do epics way different than you guys do. You know, it's like so many things going on.
Well, Speed is pulling that up. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Erika.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's an excellent challenge to pose. I mean, particularly since it seems like if it's a single mutation that behaves differently depending on like essentially where it is and how it's expressed. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. It's I think it's a relatively new kind of idea that enhancers themselves can be pleiotropic. But yeah, it was a single mutation that influenced more than one trait, or the expression of this trait in more than one area, essentially.
Yeah. So
substitution.
Yeah, so I would imagine that would be an excellent example. I'm thinking that because of how creationists typically act, you're almost certainly going to get it's devolution no matter what.
Right.
And the pushback on that would of course be, okay, well, in one we're getting some additional morphological change, and in the other, or rather a morphologic gain, quote unquote, and then in the other case we're getting a morphologic loss. So why would that be, like, categorically speaking, why are those the same thing? Why are those both considered devolution? And if they are, what would you consider not devolution, right? I mean, the name of the game with these guys, it seems very frequently, is that they don't like the concept of most structures just being slight changes in precursor structures, or precursor sequences. Because, you know, the like basic principle in evolution and natural selection is if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so after this kind of first flurry of novel appearance of, you know, proteins, amino acids, whatever, you just don't really need all that much new stuff to get adaptation, like appropriate adaptation to various environments. Which is why, by the way, this always ends up being an abio or bust, because, you know, you can say, all right, yeah, it's precursor structures all the way down, and eventually they will take that to the termination and turn it into an abio argument. So, you know, but which of course is like, okay, like if you want to have the abio talk, we certainly can. But, you know, to me, what that says is there is no defensible way, right, to take a stance that evolution in the sense that we understand it today does not occur.
Right, like you could just as easily take that to the extreme, all the way back to time zero of the Big Bang, for instance.
Yeah,
where all the matter and energy come from? Well, we don't know. That's the point.
Oh yeah, and you know, there are a great many like religious folks out there. They're almost always creationists who will take it to that termination, all the way back to the dawn of matter. What Otangelo says in the comments, that fossils are irrelevant, is very, yeah, that's super silly, because if you're taking the stance that if I'm trying to support evolutionary theory, right, then a necessary prediction of evolutionary theory, like this is absolutely just a part of it, that can't be avoided. Maybe you don't care for creationism purposes, but if you're trying to support evolution, then you should see slow morphologic change over geologic time, period. And you should see it all the time, and you should see it in every lineage.
And you do.
And yeah, and we do. So it's this prediction that is made by evolutionary theory over and over and over again. And this is why, in my opinion, creationists are very much keen on saying, like, the fossils don't matter, it's bones in the dirt, whatever. But let's say for argument's sake, right? Let's say for argument's sake that we just want to prove the theropod to bird transition using molecular evidence, right?
Okay.
The cool part about that is birds already are equipped to form scales and feathers, because they all have scales on their legs, right? And they all are covered in feathers. And the difference between both of those epithelial cells becoming scales on the legs or feathers on the body is not very significant. They come from the same base kind of cell, right?
Yeah.
It's slight changes in the sequence. So the question is, okay, well, fine. Maybe that is the case. Whatever. Except we can get crocodiles to grow feather-like appendages in the lab. This is something I'm about to link in the side chat. A really nice paper from 2017. But it's ridiculous to me. Like, and at that point, you're like, okay, so we show slow morphologic change over time from theropod dinosaurs to non-avian dinosaurs, non-avian dinosaurs to the birds that we see today. And you can show that this happens with molecular genetics right now in the present. What more do you want?
They want omnipotence.
Yeah, you want to see the evolution in real time. Maybe we Jurassic Park up some, very scaly looking theropods, and then we just wait and do it again, right? Like you can't ask for better support for the dinosaur to bird transition. Okay, sorry for monologuing. I'm about to put this in the chat.
So what if they found a fossil of an empty tomb with a cross in it and some nails? Would they call that irrelevant fossils?
Oh yeah.
I mean, if they found fossil evidence of the crucifixion, would they call fossils irrelevant? Anyway, so
it's a confirmation bias.
Scott,
yeah.
Did you put something in? What do you have a wrench, Erika?
Yeah, I put it in the side chat. I put the paper in the side chat. Yeah, Otangelo says there's no evidence for feathers evolution, and then I just link a paper in the chat that is titled "Comprehensive Molecular and Cellular Studies Suggest Avian Scutate Scales are secondarily derived from feathers and more distant from reptilian scales." Like that is precisely what you would require, right? To show that step of transition. If you can do it on a molecular scale now in the lab with very little simple tweaks, I don't understand where that logical leap is difficult. But I mean, whatever. Yeah, Otangelo says the title is not the evidence, it's the claim. Yeah, cool. So
Erika,
and tell me what is wrong with it.
Erika, are you sure you have a wrench because your paper didn't appear?
Yeah, I have a wrench. It appeared. I'm looking at it.
Why can't I find it?
It's right under Nesslig asking, can you provide the link?
Yeah, I don't see your stuff.
Huh.
You see it, but I don't see it. So, okay, just say hi in chat so I can make sure you have a wrench. Because I don't
make sure she has a wrench.
Why doesn't Erika have a wrench and Otangelo does?
I have a wrench. My thing says I have a wrench.
So why didn't I see your paper? It didn't like your paper. It thought it was hate speech.
No.
Your paper on evolution is considered hate speech to creationists.
Here, I'm putting it in the private chat so one of you guys can post it, since for whatever reason it's not letting me.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's amazing.
So Erika, if I may ask you a follow-up question, basically, most of the professors in this area that I've talked to have said that that the field has not completely but largely moved on and figured out that morphological evolution is to a large extent due to mutations in regulatory sequences. And so if you can, could you please give your thoughts or position on that?
Yeah, I mean, regulation is really important. This is no more evident than in the area that I specialize with, the difference between humans and genus Pan, right? We share 98.8% of coding DNA, right? Coding base pairs, and yet we are indeed very different animals. So the interesting bit about that is the expression of genes and how they're regulated is somewhat of a new area of study. And even though it looks very much like we also share the vast majority of our regulation and expression with chimpanzees, it does indeed turn out that the regulation changes are more impactful in some ways than the simple base pair mutations, right? So expression can play almost like a deeper role in some cases is kind of the gist that I get.
So you're saying that it's not clear if coding versus regulatory mutations are more or less frequent, but some are certainly more impactful than others.
I would think that's a fair assessment, yes.
Okay.
Oh, dude, Otangelo just links a macro. He has linked a website that has a whole bunch of different sources in it. And I'm just going to very quickly read out the date. So remember, the paper that I just posted is from 2017.
Okay.
So we have a source from 1980, 1985, 1996, 1940, 1986. We have one from 1991, 1949, 1991, and 1991. Otangelo, this is a very new field, this ability of ours to actually tweak organisms in the lab. So you can't quote something from an ancient website and suggest that that's going to go up against, in a fair way, a very recent paper with solid methodology. What I need you to do for me is I need you to look at the paper that I just sent and tell me what problem you have with the methodology and conclusions, the methodology they performed and the conclusions they reached, if you are going to have a beef with it.
He'll get back to you.
He says he wants us to look at the paper together.
Ooh.
His problem is with the conclusion itself, so...
Yeah, I mean, we can look at it together. I mean, I don't know how interested everyone here is going to be in reading a paper, but we can certainly do that. I mean, I think a much better use of your time, Otangelo, would be, instead of watching us read it, look at it yourself and then say what the problems are, and then we address those problems specifically together. That way it trims the fat of the conversation.
I feel like we can take a look at that at a different date.
Yep.
Because
yeah,
to be honest, I don't get much chat time with you, Erika. So I was just hoping to keep this a narrow conversation today, if that's all right with you.
Oh, it's fine with me. I genuinely am. I'm cool with whatever.
So before you do that,
I don't know if you have seen it, but there was a recent publication of a paper describing like a new dinosaur with a very cool integument. Like you have like a dinosaur with a bird of paradise like feather.
Yeah.
Are
you talking about Epidexipteryx?
No, it's another. I will bring it up. Give me a second.
Yeah, it's Anchiornis. That's the
it's a different one.
Oh, it's a different one?
Oh, okay, cool.
So Erika, let's see. Scott Duke asked a question. He asked, what percentage of the fossil record we have DNA for? Like 0.001?
Oh my God! For the entire fossil record?
If you consider the entire fossil record,
I mean, you're going to want to put like 9 or 10 zeros, like 0.000, like just because you have to consider that the biodiversity that we know about in the fossil record is a fragment of the actual biodiversity,
right?
Which is a huge bummer, by the way. But that being said, fossilization is essentially, in many cases, the act of mineralization. So we very, very rarely get DNA from fossils, period. I mean, even if you want to talk about like recent hominins like Homo floresiensis, like we can't even get DNA from those remains.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. That problem is going to be solved with modeling, with embryological modeling. I was just talking about gamers and soft body physics engines, and that is going to be soft body physics engines with stickiness are ways that we could actually start to model certain embryological development.
Oh, I'm screen sharing you now an article about this finding. So
yeah,
you can see like an artist rendering of the new dinosaur.
Did you post it?
Yeah. I'm screen sharing it right now, but I can also post the paper itself.
Oh, what the heck?
Two things real fast. One, Otangelo, phylogenetic trees are absolutely not irrelevant. Sal actually had a great show with me on my channel the other day where he was discussing how even for young Earth creationists, phylogenies are impeccably important. So a phylogenetic tree, regardless of whether you're a creationist or into conventional science, is incredibly important. Second of all, I hate to bust you, Otangelo, but I just went and checked the paper. The results section has 3 separate sections talking about the molecular impact, what was done, and how, on a molecular expression level, this is impactful. Like I'm looking at it right now. So you gotta like, I know you probably don't have time to read the entire paper right now, but maybe like Control F for molecular or Control F for expression or something like that, just to maybe scan over it. Let us know what you think. He says he disagrees with Sal. I mean, that's fine if you want to think that, but Sal also is like in the field, and he may be a creationist, but he certainly utilizes phylogeny with regard to some super, super important stuff for our modern living. Phylogeny is important for studying pathology. It's important for conservation efforts. God, it's important for pharmaceuticals. I mean, goodness gracious. I think you got to reevaluate there, Otangelo.
It's important for the Maripovich show.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true.
Okay, I'm putting this in the chat. Your link to the thing that you're showing. Hopefully. Oh my goodness.
While we're on the
I think I put it in the chat.
Oh, I'm now looking for the link to the actual paper, so I'll bring it up soon.
Yeah, I put one in there, but it's got a whole lot of additional plucky descent. What the fuck? I don't know. Anyway, okay.
Well, while we're on the subject of phylogenies, I don't know if either you, Speed, or Erika or Nesslig here, if there is any relevant information you guys have on the relevance of distance-based methods in phylogenies currently.
Oh man, yeah. I wish I could help you there. With regard to what I do with phylogenies, I mentioned this on my channel the other day, but I work with I work with existing consensus trees rather than building my own. Even when I'm trying to decide for like something specific, I usually at least look at like an existing block and pull from there. So I wish I could help that.
By the way, Andrew, when did you do that video with Cell on phylogenies?
Oh, me? When did I do that?
Yeah, was that yesterday?
Yeah, that was. Oh no, I think it might have been the day before. Yeah, it was the day before.
Okay.
So somebody asked what those spikes are for. Like those aren't spikes; those are like feather-like integuments, and they hypothesize that it is maybe similar to those of the birds of paradise, like a maybe sexual selection or something like that.
Okay, I put the link for that video you did with Cell in the chat, and everybody should watch that. And Andrew, you should grab that and watch it. And oh my goodness, hang on a second. Hold on. Anyway, everybody should watch that. That was a great video. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I really had fun too. First of all, I really like Sal, and second of all, I learned a lot from his usage in Mega because I am pretty handcuffed to R.
Yeah, well, you guys actually, got into some stuff and some tools and how to use the tools, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I recently had to use R also for my thesis report.
Yeah, I haven't looked at R much. It looks like a kind of a script language. How similar is it to Python?
Oh God, I have no idea. The thing is R is the only coding that I can do at all, and even then, like a lot of times I run into trouble and have to fiddle around on the internet and see what I'm doing because
it's very versatile.
Yeah, it is really versatile, and the cool thing about it too is that there's so many different packages that can help you get done what you want to get done.
Right, I saw that.
So I was trying to figure out just for fun the other day. Apparently, you can do some really light comparative genomics in R, and you download from like a database like Ensemble or something like that. And you can actually run alignments. And so I was trying to figure out how to do that. And I got so frustrated. I was like, you know what? Now it's not the time.
So our studio is interactive. You type something in and it gives you an answer.
Oh yeah. Our studio is super interactive.
Yeah, I just installed it today, and I was going to take a course in R. I've been meaning to for a long time.
You listen. If you learn anything super informative or nice, let me know, because I'm always trying to up my R skills. They're not great as of now.
Yeah, I'm not sure at what level they introduced you, but if you look at, I mean, you could do some simple like Hello World programs, add two vectors. There's examples where to learn the syntax of the language, you should start out a little simpler than what the stuff that you were doing. We're using packages and all that.
Right.
Yeah. But I'll look into it and see. I have Anaconda, and I just installed our studio on it. I use it for Python. So
yeah, let me know how it goes.
Okay.
Hey, that reminds me, Speed, are you able to change the title of the video?
The title of this video?
Yeah, because since we have Erika here, we gotta include her.
Oh yeah. I should.
Erika schooling Otangelo.
Well, I don't know if you guys know, but Leo has 199 subscribers and I have 198.
Oh no.
I need 2 more subs, guys.
I'm already subbed to both of you guys. Yeah.
Me too.
Side note, yeah, I agreed, Icarus. That was my first thought too. Otangelo says he's gone through the paper and he's more than happy to explain why it's inadequate to give the answer on how feathers can come from.
That's very fast.
Yeah, man. That would listen, Otangelo, if you really did read that whole paper in like 5 minutes, I'm really jealous because it takes me a long time to really. First, you got to read the paper, then you have to digest it, right? And then you have to reread it. This is my process, anyways. You have to reread it again and make sure that you're actually getting what you're saying.
Just so you know, the paper is not just the abstract.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
There's more to it. Well. These creationists are amazing.
Is it open access, the paper, or not?
Yeah, paper's open access. It's on all things on Nature.
Oh, so that he cannot use it as an excuse. So, all right.
I'm gonna bill you first, Erika, because then maybe I will get 2 goddamn subs so I can have 200 subscribers.
Yeah, you guys, if you're not subbed to Speed and if you're not subbed to Leo, go ahead and do both of those real quick.
Oh no, not Leo. No, we don't want him to get 200 for me.
Oh, of course, yeah. Otangelo says the invitation stands. Otangelo, I'm more than happy to discuss this with you at some juncture. But I have a feeling that the conversation is very quickly going to devolve into, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but an argument from incredulity based off of expression in tissue types and not what's actually been done in the lab.
And here's the thing: if you disagree, if you can actually show that the paper is wrong, you shouldn't argue this on the internet. You should contact the authors of the paper itself. So.
Oh yeah.
Or publish comments. Like you can go up there and get peer-reviewed comments and let them know why their explanation doesn't work. That's the cool part about science. You don't have to have any real specifications to get involved, as long as you can back up what you're saying.
In case you have to leave soon, Erika, I would like to, I guess, propose one additional topic that I've been looking into recently, which is kind of related to what we've been discussing so far. But like, I don't know if you guys want to talk about Behe and irreducible complexity and whatnot. I know it's an old one, but like I've kind of been taking it more seriously nowadays, like in terms of videos watching on it.
Oh yeah, I mean we can talk about that. I mean that's I can talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was reacting to Otangelo's comment. So are you running again? Like who's running?
We're all running.
Oh yeah. So Otangelo wanted to have a discussion with me at some juncture a while back on like abiogenesis when he was doing that thing where he was kind of hitting everybody up to have abio conversations. And most of the stuff that I saw him in, and that's why I said it's going to boil down to a conversation on origins or bust, specification of cell tissue types, and the 17 things that he brings up a lot, all of these things that have to be present. But the thing is, I told him then, and I'll say this again, because this isn't really my field, I don't know that I can tell you anything new with regard to the abio stuff. I mean, I saw him on this channel just the other day having the whole in the prebiotic earth, what would be required explained to him multiple times, and it didn't really seem like he was getting it. And if you guys can't explain it to him, I don't know that I can either. Now, I'm happy to have a conversation. If you want to discuss the evolution of feathers and dinosaurs, I'm happy to have that discussion. But I'm not down to have that discussion if you're prepared to hand wave papers and all of paleontology away in favor of discussing an origins or bust thing.
He has already expressed his disdain for paleontology by, fossils don't matter. Like, all right.
Well, yeah, and I mean, he's entitled to that opinion, but like that's morphology, gross morphology and ecology is kind of like what I do. So it's going to be very difficult to have a conversation, with me and expect me not to bring it up because I find them to be very important, very valid lines of evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Let me know when you're sharing my screen, Speed.
Oh, you have to tell me that you have a screen because...
Oh. I thought it just gave you a notification.
Isn't that the one we just looked at?
Yeah. What I was going to ask is this the paper that Erika linked?
Yes.
No. Wait, no.
Okay. Did you put that in chat somewhere, Leo?
No, but I can when I'm done. So this obviously titled "The Molecular Evolution of Feathers with Direct Evidence from Fossils," and what this paper talks about is essentially. A particular, I don't know what exact type of chemical it would be, but they're called keratins. There's alpha keratins and beta keratins, and it's saying that if we go back in time, there's a mix of them. But what happens is we see that these seem to be dominated by alpha keratins, whereas birds today are dominated by beta keratins, which, in line with what we can see in the fossil record, indicates a transition there, which tells us that feathers evolved. And just scroll back up here. This is from February 19th, 2019. I mean, and look how many authors we have here. So, I mean, this is some serious stuff here. Here's the link, or the link to whatever Otangelo cited, which isn't really much of a website, but 1980, 1985, 1995, 1996, 1940, 1986, 1996, 1949. So 96 seems to be the latest date in anything here. This is from 2019.
So Leo,
and this is what I'm talking about, is that these guys, they don't keep up with these fields, and they don't keep up with what's published in these fields. What they do is, go ahead.
Did you want to say something here?
Oh yeah. Sorry, you stop. I was just going to say, so to your point, right? Otangelo says in the side chat, talking about this conversation you guys had with Abio the other day, he says, all you have are hypotheses and made up scenarios which find no evidence in real life. What are the two papers that Leo and myself just showed you where they perform this stuff in a lab, right? This is legitimate work in molecular genetics, right? And comparative genomics and just like tinkering and all that stuff. So I don't understand, like, I genuinely am at a loss for real here on what would suffice to you. I mean, if you do it in a lab, it doesn't count. If it's paleontology, it doesn't count. If it's simulation, it doesn't count.
If it's phylogenetics, it doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count. Right. So
all the real science doesn't count.
If it's evidence, it doesn't count.
Exactly.
Right. So he says my response was to Demeter, not to you. Right. But the sentiment holds true. You said you don't like evidence that isn't in real life. Well, what is work in a lab? If you can turn a scale into even a proto feather in the lab, is that not sufficient? And if not, why not?
If you look at what he is saying, like all you have are to Demeter, all you have are hypotheses and made up scenarios scenarios with no evidence in real life. Like, okay, at least Demeter is providing an hypothesis, which he is now currently providing a testable hypothesis for in the literature. You are doing nothing. Potentially,
but doing nothing but regurgitating arguments that have been refuted for at the absolute least the last 100 years.
Well, and so here's the thing with that too. here's the thing with that too. You don't.
Oh, hold on.
If you want to bring up these arguments and say things along the lines of like these arguments are valid, even if they're old, even if they've even if they've been debunked, whatever. If you can present a new reason as to why they should be taken seriously, then that's fine. We can have that conversation. But what you can't do is present the same arguments with no novel spin on them, especially when people who are way more qualified than everyone here have shown why this work is valid.
Yes.
And this gets into the whole idea of like I feel like he's denying observational evidence to begin with, like the whole the whole spin on observational versus historical science and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's a different version of that essentially. Like every observation you make in the lab isn't sufficient because.
But here's the thing. Like Otangelo asked for like a biochemical evidence for the evolution of the feather, and Leophilius, if I pronounce it correctly, you provide actually evidence of differences in biochemical aspects of the feather from alpha to beta keratin. So that is at least something he's asking for. And
the other thing is that it's corroborated by the fossil record. So this isn't just molecular evidence. This is molecular evidence that comports directly with another related field. That corroboration makes the case even stronger.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And he says he says that you need to know and understand, directed at me, you need to know and understand how feathers are built. For the case that I'm making here, right? The case that you can get feathers or proto-feathers from classic squamate reptilian scales, right? Or squamate-like reptilian scales. I don't need to know that the specifics on how a feather is built or the specifics on how a scale is built. What I need to provide is a stepwise process for how you can take what is already a scale and get a feather from it, or show that it can and has been done in a lab. Mm-hmm. This doesn't need to revert down to a cell specialization argument, abio or developmental biology stance. If it can be done in a lab, if it had been done in a lab, then this conversation is kind of over.
Yeah, I believe that they actually did an experiment where they turned a crocodilian scale into a feather, or at least the beginnings of the developmental stages of what the feather would look like.
Yep, that's the paper I linked earlier. That's exactly the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a hill Otangelo wants to die on.
This also reminds me of the thing that I also recently learned during my course on plant development. There is this hypothesis of how the flower, the organs of flowers are just modified leaves, like the petals and the sepals and the stamen. They are just modified leaves. And it turns out if you turn some certain genes off of the plant, then these organs will develop into just green leaves. All of them.
Yep.
That's kind of interesting. I hadn't heard of that before.
Okay, so I need to ask, now that I have Speed and Erika here together, what's this going on with this debate we're supposed to be having? Because Immutable's now involved. Erika is apparently involved. What happened? What's going on? Can
you do it tomorrow on Sunday night, Erika?
Yeah, I can do it Sunday.
Okay. So wait, what? So is this like a 3-on-3 now, or what's going on?
No. Erika is going to moderate, and SFT is going to moderate. So we need somebody sane from our side, and we need to give you 15 Red Bulls, Erika, so you actually get mean.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, Speed, and I this sounds mean, but I mean it 100%. Just be prepared to respond to praise, because we all know Gavin's too fucking stupid to even know what a cogent argument is, let alone develop one.
Oh no, you don't want to pull a John Maddox and piss off our debatees before the debate.
Oh, if he wants to be butthurt, if he doesn't have the proverbial C.O. Jones to handle it, then he shouldn't be on the internet.
Okay. Anyway, it should be interesting. It's on is the mind material. And I have no idea what we're up against here, but I didn't want to do it on Stanning's channel at all because it gives me an icky feeling to be there. But they called us cowards because we were trying to change to another channel, and I don't know.
I'm going to be honest. I just wanted a larger platform for all of us to be on.
Okay, so agreed. Sunday at 9. So
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
9:30 EST is what Standing said.
So am I co-modding with our friend SFD?
Yes, you
Okay.
are. Is that
I'll speak for
okay?
you.
That's fine.
You, yeah. And that's the example that I was mentioning.
To my knowledge, Standing and I are back on okay terms. So I'm happy to interact with our friend Standing for Truth.
So me and Leo won't have to pull the moderators off of each other.
Listen, if there's one thing that I've been told that I'm pretty competent at, even by many of our creationist friends, it's being a non-biased moderator. So
that's why I want you. So that's why we're counting on you.
Is Leo frozen for you guys?
Leo, hello?
Leo?
Okay, there we go.
His camera is frozen. But
Yeah, he's frozen.
My camera.
My screen, like, can you see what I'm screen sharing right now? This is the example that I was giving. Like, you can see this on the A, like on the top left. That's a normal phenotype, and the rest are all mutants. And you can see that some mutants, the floral organs are just like they turn into green leaves, basically.
I was capable of successfully cloning myself.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Nesslig, I'm absolutely sure that you gave us a link for that in the chat, right?
For what?
For that page.
Oh, for the paper, I provided a link to the paper about the recent dinosaur with the birds of paradise like feathers.
Yeah, I'm giving you shit because when people show things, I really like to have the links so I can put them in chat for everybody, so we can look at it, at our leisure. So if can you just copy that link in the chat for us?
For this, what I'm showing right now.
Yeah.
This is just like Google Images, but you can see here. This is the paper. Let's see here for this particular one.
We know more about that devil than anything else.
Floral development from 2010. It's not very recent, but still.
Research kit. What did you search for? Anyway. I like my links.
I will provide the link.
Hey! Hold on. There it is.
What is it?
He hit the 200.
Screen.
There it is.
200, you bastard. I hate you. Nobody loves me.
Wait, check yours. See if yours is up. Go to subscriptions. The fucking app would work. Speed of sound. No, it still says 198, but I do know that their subscription algorithm has been not a little wonky for the past couple weeks, because I've had people that have said that, they've subscribers and then have gone up and then have dropped and then have gone up when they're actually not like losing any subscribers. I don't know what the fuck the issue is.
Yeah, I can corroborate that. I had a weird deal the other day where I gained 15 subs in an hour, and then I lost 12 an hour later, and I was like, when I went to go try to see who is listening to track who is who's subbing and who's desubbing, whatever, using vidIQ or something. And when I was trying to get in the weeds and see what was going on, it was real glitchy. So I was like, I wonder if I didn't just gain 3 subs, and that was the whole thing. So.
Well, at least you're at 5. I'm only at 200.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
All I need is somebody to be really nice for Christmas and send me a tablet that can link with a MacBook Pro, and I can release so much fucking more because all of my Dr. Eigenstate Explained series I can't do because I need to write out equations and do little doodles and stuff, and I don't have a way of I can't do that with just a mouse in Paint. It's gonna be stupid. I need to figure out I should set up.
You are breaking up really bad.
Yeah, you have to
Turning
wait
off
a
a
little.
little bit.
I think you can turn off your camera and it will maybe help.
So my goal is to get to 300.
Will probably not turn off my camera.
Yeah, it'd probably turn off.
Oh, Leo, if you turn off your camera, it will maybe help with the.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn off
of data.
my camera. My signal is all right. I don't know why it's doing this. Our internet has been fucking wonky for the past like week. I don't know what the hell the issue is. I don't like turning off my camera.
I hate when that happens.
I embrace my ugliness. That's why.
Oh man, see, I when I'm using my my avatar, it's almost always because I've just like taken a shower and I'm like working a swamp wind look with like long wet hair. So.
Can I ask you a question, Erika?
Sasquatch.
Yeah, true. Yeah, what's up, Leo?
Can you, how long is your hair?
It's pretty damn long.
Like, it's got to be at least mid back. Because I can just tell your hair has a lot of weight to it.
It does.
A lot of volume.
Yeah. So the thing is that I actually had to get my sister to cut it a couple of months ago because my quarantine hair was like really looking. It was starting to get a very Amish vibe, and so I lopped it off. But it grows back really fast.
Erika, that reminds me. Like, I don't know if you are familiar with this aspect, but do you know why humans have are able to grow really long hair on the top of the head? Unlike the other apes?
Yeah, so, okay, well, first of all, there are other apes that do tend to grow really long hair selectively on parts of their bodies, and it's mostly orangs. So the thinking with the hair on the head is, in my opinion, almost exclusively linked to the fact that we walk on 2 feet, and so when we feel the heat of the sun, it's usually on our scalps and on our backs. So if you can grow this long hair on the top of your head, you're going to experience this really nice shade selection, right? For covering the scalp and protecting that from UV, as well as the shoulders and the top of the back.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this has got to be the most disingenuous statement I think I've ever heard Otangelo say. My aim is always to learn from each other, even if we disagree, except every time you've been corrected, you just don't accept it, and then we find you making the same argument you've already been corrected on numerous times somewhere else. Yeah, that's not learning.
We also saw this when Erika provided the paper. Like instead of saying like, "Oh, how interesting! I will look to it and talk to you later." Instead he rejected it immediately. Like.
So yeah. I think
the difference.
His refusal to answer my question about what evidence he would need is absolutely a blocker for me.
Oh, you got a fire response like, "Oh, you too, Leo, you too."
Yeah. So I think.
Yeah, he just said I'm projecting. I'm literally not projecting anything.
So I think I would agree. I would agree with Otangelo on that sentiment. Like, if that is a sentiment that he truly abides by, I agree with that. I mean, I think you can learn something at the very least about where the other person is coming from in a conversation with anyone, excluding pretty much Nathan Thompson.
If you listen.
Yeah. I mean, from most people, you can generally at least kind of get a better idea of where they're coming from. And I think like what Nesslig said is true. Like, I find myself all the time when I'm in debates with people learning new things or being like, "Oh wow, like hadn't considered that or hadn't heard of that. Better look into it," because it turns out as much as I love it, I just don't know everything.
My reaction exactly.
Who is he talking to here?
He's talking about me. This is funny because I haven't been corrected on that, and I cited at least 7 sources that state that it isn't, on top of Speed's like roughly half a dozen as well that one night. But the funny thing is that Otangelo has admitted he's never said that DNA is a code. Do you remember that? You remember that the last time he was in here, Speed?
Yeah.
When he said, my claim isn't that DNA is a code, it's that the assignment of codons to proteins is the code, but not the DNA itself. So is he backpedaling here? Is that what we're seeing?
I also have a conversation with Otangelo on Speed's, like one of other Speed's hangouts, and I told him the exact same thing. DNA is not a code. It refers to the relation between the codons and the amino acids. That's the code. The DNA itself is not the code. Yeah.
Scott Duke asked another question here, and that would be for Erika. What would the purpose of a beard be?
Yeah, I just tried to quickly shoot an answer back in the chat, but with beards, that's an interesting one. A lot of times in primates, the sexual dimorphism in areas like the face tend to be a result of like signaling. So it's the ability to signal to the opposite sex that, yes, I am a healthy member and someone worthy of breeding. So in my opinion, it's possible that the beard. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can't grow a beard because I'm not healthy. Wait, that's fucking great. Thanks, Erika.
Hey, I'm just listen, Leo. There are many cases in human society specifically where there has been sexual selection for certain aspects of the male or female body that have actually no real impact on fertility or overall health. That, for whatever reason, we're just into it. So, humans are weird in that light.
As long as Amelia Clark doesn't care, I don't care.
There it is. Yeah, the code thing, that's been really bopping around kind of the SFT Brain Trust B team.
Hold on a minute.
I have to say, so Erika, you go ahead.
What do you mean, Leo and Amelia Clark? Or
what about us?
Oh no, what is going around the SFT Brain Trust? I missed that.
The DNA code thing.
Oh, DNA. Oh yeah. Well, 1.3% of DNA is a code. The rest is not. I'm sorry.
Well, DNA is not it.
That's a portion that codes for protein. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a code, and we can call it a code. But of course,
we can call it a code, but it's not one.
There was something.
If DNA is a code, then literally every molecule that exists is to some extent a code, and that's just not the case.
Well, yes, there's a code.
These guys love quote mining. Let's see. So
here's the thing. Otangelo is now saying that he has never claimed that DNA is a code, but we have him recorded saying that DNA is a code. So that's.
So an IBM physicist, a renowned IBM physicist, says this about
Scroll up. I want to see the title of this article. Scroll up. I want to see the title of this article. So I can search it. Well, if you link it. So what I was going to say is I'm sure some people in here, I bet Erika does. I'm quite certain Speed does. I don't know if Andrew or if Nesslig do, but I recently, as in like 2 months ago, asked Landon Kirtnall, who's one of the world's greatest mathematicians and logicians and one of the world's greatest computer scientists, literally studied under Rich Feynman himself, literally helped develop the internet. I asked him, in your opinion, from the perspective of a computer scientist, tied with what at least you know about biology, would you state that DNA, as in the physical molecule itself, is a code? And he said, no. Can we say that it does coding things? Yes, but it is inaccurate to state that the molecule itself is a code. This is one of the world's foremost computer scientists saying this.
Oh my God, Leo. You're going to break John Maddox's heart in real time.
But the thing is, I want, if when I get my channel to the ability where I can bring people on, I want to see if John Maddox is willing to come on and have a discussion with Landon about just anything. Because you know how John's tries to act like he knows more than everything. Landon is the kind of guy who just doesn't take that shit, but he's not a dick about it. He will shut you down so goddamn quick you didn't even realize it happened. It would be, oh my God.
I cannot imagine that. I cannot imagine that our pal John Maddox would risk that kind of humiliation.
No, he wouldn't.
No, he would. Why do you think that? And I think that you in the room when he said this, I think it was that after show, Erika, but he said, and maybe it was and you just weren't there yet, but he straight up said he will not have a debate with me on physics. He will not.
No, you were breaking up, Leo. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I actually, to answer your question though, yes, I was in the room for that. I was in the room when he said that.
Okay, so you didn't hear me say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why he won't though, and by I don't know why I mean I have a suspicion.
Wonder where mutable is.
I mean, I'm sorry, but if you can't tell me how to normalize a wave function, you probably shouldn't be talking about quantum mechanics. I'm just that's what I think. If you can't even tell me what a complex number is, you probably shouldn't be talking about physics at all.
Dude, yeah, I mean, I said this on my channel the other day, but I have not really seen such a bad understanding of population genetics and how evolution works than what I heard John going on about the other day on
Yeah. Like you have you have people debating with Depot Dinosaur, and they are bringing up entropy, like how entropy is disappointing evolution, and when Depot asked them to define what entropy is, they can't. They cannot define
Exactly.
it.
It's Sal himself. Sal has a master's degree in applied physics. He's done statistical mechanics, and he says if there's one major criticism he's got with creationists, just stop talking about thermodynamics. You're not doing yourselves any good. You don't understand it. Just let that one go. And this is the respect Sal, because somebody asked me, well, would you say Sal knows more than you on physics? And I would say, honestly, yeah, the guy's got a degree in it, and I don't. But the thing is, I can admit when people know more than me, these creationists can't. Like, I asked Otangelo like 5 times one night if he would admit that Demeter knew more than him about molecular biology, seeing as Demeter has a PhD in molecular biology, and Otangelo doesn't. He would not. He would not answer that question. Would not do it.
Yeah.
Fervently refused.
And the thing about entropy being the same as disorder is just flat out wrong.
It's not true.
Yeah, for example, the reason why proteins fold in order structure is entropy. By folding in a way, they reduce the amount of, at least they increase the amount of entropy in the system by folding.
Exactly.
By organizing the hydrophobic structures to the inside of the protein itself. Yeah.
Yes. How's it going, David?
I think the best way to define entropy, which is the statistical one, and you probably already know this, Leo, though, entropy is basically like counting the ways something can be, counting the number of configurations that will lead to the same macroscopic properties. And the greater the greater the logarithm of that, then that's greater entropy. So it's more a statistical statement.
I love how you brought in the math, like the logarithm of the number of microstates by Boltzmann's constant is what entropy is. I always say that entropy. This would be more like what you were alluding to, statistical mechanics, which is the mathematics we apply to thermodynamics. A more statistical mechanic definition would be entropy tells us that the amount of energy capable of being used for work decreases as it's used for work. So the more energy you use for work, the less you're capable of using that after it's been. So you take energy, you use it for work. Now it's going to be a little bit harder to use that energy that remains for work. And every time it gets used, it gets harder to use it until it gets to a state where there's just no way that you can use it anymore.
Yeah, and I also recommend presentations by Sharon Glotzer. I don't know if you know her work, but she has several TED Talks, and she shows, she uses computer simulations where she has hard objects interacting with each other, or only hard spheres. The only interaction is they cannot overlap, and and her work shows that entropy by itself can order stuff, because when you crowd these objects in a way, there are more ways for the system to be ordered than for it to be disordered, and thus the system will spontaneously be organized.
The best way I put it is, and this is a much more simplistic sort of analogy, but it kind of makes the point, is that it's way easier to throw pieces of paper in a room, and it's easier to take papers, move it in a way that it would just through the paper packing it. When you just throw pieces of paper into a room, the chances of them stacking neatly is very, very small. But if you were to take a stack of papers and just kind of do this with it, if you throw them in the room, there's gonna be way more ways that it looks like that than it looks like a neat stack. That's entropy. That's the statistic.
Also, if you put a bunch of pencils in a bag and shake them, then they tend to align with each other because they are crowded.
The thing is, if any two chemicals react and they create a more complex molecule, entropy always increases, but not in that particular molecule. So, I mean, it's just a misunderstanding of chemistry. I mean, we know that things can polymerize.
And another thing
would wear nylon. Your underwear would fall down.
The other thing is that you can have within a or an isolated system, separate subsystems that are open. Entropy in those subsystems is increasing while the total entropy of the system as a whole is still increasing, like in our universe.
This is also actually why life is thermodynamically favorable, because they accelerate the increase in entropy of the universe, because they are accepting high energy from the surroundings and dissipating it as low energy in the form of like infrared radiation and such. This is also the basis of the work of Jeremy England in his adaptive dissipation hypothesis for the origin of life.
Yeah, that's a cool paper.
And
Sean Carroll has also made the case that entropy, that life is essentially actually this word needs to be taken loosely, but an inevitable result of entropy.
Yeah. And that's what the creationists don't understand, is that entropy, for the most part, only increases. The second law only applies in closed, or some would say isolated systems where matter or where energy can't flow in or out. The Earth isn't a closed system. It's obviously getting energy from the sun, energy from its interior.
What
was it? Was it John Maddox that said the Earth is a closed system, or was it somebody on SFT's channel insists that the Earth is a closed system?
I wouldn't put a statement like that past Mad Max.
Yeah. Short of
by the way,
sorry, go ahead.
The debate tomorrow. I was just saying, I believe it's tomorrow. Between Sal and T-Jump.
Sorry, you're breaking up really hard. Sorry.
Yeah, all we heard is you're going to masturbate tomorrow. So I don't know why you're bringing that up, but
yeah, I think the T-Jump
just
Sal.
Let me know when I'm back. Is it tonight? Oh, what? Whoa, wait, really? It's tonight?
T-Jump and who?
Yes, sir.
Maddox?
T-Jump and Sal.
T-Jump and Sal.
Okay.
Oh shit! I'm sorry. I got to read a comment from good old Odie here. Leophilius, I did not answer because your question was silly and totally irrelevant. How do you measure knowledge anyway? He was talking about when I asked him if Demeter knows more than him on molecular biology. It's not a silly question. To somebody who actually has a graduate level degree and who is actively engaged in advanced research in the field, no more than somebody who has neither of those credentials in any field or not. I think that the answer obviously. It would be no different than if Otangelo were to ask me, does Sean Carroll about theoretical? I know. But Otangelo doesn't have the humility to say, you know what? Yeah, Demeter knows more than me. I disagree with him and we've had discussions, but, the guy knows more than me. But he won't do that.
Well,
most creations.
Otangelo says, oh my goodness. Otangelo says, data suggests that the pennaceous feathers of Enchiornis had some, but not all, of the ultrastructural and molecular characteristics of extant feathers. So that observation annihilates already anything further. What happened is the origin of feathers from scratch by evolution? No, that's not what evolution says. It's not the origin from scratch. It's the origin from existing epithelial cells that behave like scales, Otangelo. And the thing about that is, too, what you just described on Enchiornis is a transitional state.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Erika, he copied that directly. Erika, he copied that directly out of the significant statement right above. So he copied it.
They cherry pick. Cherry pick. That's all they do is cherry pick and climb.
It's descent with modification, not descent from nothing.
Yeah, I don't. That's okay. Maybe okay. Hold on. Maybe we're misunderstanding. Otangelo.
By the way, Speed, link that Psychology Today article you had up.
Please tell us in the side chat, Otangelo, if what you're saying is different from our assessment just now. Are you suggesting that evolution says that feathers have to originate from scratch? And are you also suggesting in that first case that is somehow not a transitional form? And if so, what is a transitional form in your opinion? Okay, I said my piece.
I thought they always picked apples.
James W. Dr. Copy and Paste. That's pretty good. Dr.
Really,
Copy.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, copy and paste is going to do it for us, Otangelo.
with a PhD in plagiarism.
I'd say a PhD in cherry picking or quote mining.
No, that was his thesis project.
What's that?
That was his thesis project.
Oh yeah.
What
What I want to know is how merge through evolution. Then read the paper you just pulled a cherry picked link or quote
even,
from.
or
My
even like,
God.
like
Holy shit.
like to be very clear, as I've said a couple of times in this conversation so far, the evolution of feathers is rooted in a descent with modification of the scale. So you're not building it from scratch. You're altering an existing scale into first proto feathers, and then step by step into the classic flight feathers that we see in modern birds. So I don't. What you're asking for would violate evolution. You would never see the emergence of a feather from scratch. I don't know what. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
This is also something that has to do with like how they ask for new information. Like when you when you press them to exactly define what they mean by that, it almost seems like they want you to show like a new gene popping out of nothing, literally, like nothing. Like
and that's what I'm trying to show with the example I mentioned, Erika, the example in Drosophila, like that they don't have a definition of new information, new features, or what have you.
No, I mean you're 100% correct. They don't. And what Otangelo has just said in the side chat, dinosaur fossils possessing integumentary appendages of various morphologies interpreted as feathers. If they already had feathers, you need to explain how they got them in the first place. Yes, I could. So I showed this in a previous engagement, and I forget which after show it was, but I have a step-by-step dinosaurs with feathers PowerPoint with the pictures of each and every fossil and how you get from something that is very much a proto feather and nothing but a filament, like a downy filament, to the true feathers that have all of the downy barbs, the vein, the rachis, all the little barbules and hooklets and standard barbs that an avian feather today has. Yeah. So you have to go step by step from these downy filaments to true feathers. And I'm telling you right now, Otangelo, we have a representative of almost every step, if not every step in the fossil record. Okay, he wants to see the PowerPoint. Permission to show the PowerPoint?
Before you do that, no, Speed, the link to that Psychology Today article is not in the description of this video.
Also, the integuments that Otangelo was referring to, like these are in degrees of in stages. Like you have first the 1 point filament, then you have the tuft of feathers, and then you have the double veined with the rachis in the middle. So these are not like boom, the whole feather was already there. It's in stages of complexity.
Right. It's like they ask for something that's not complete. When we show that, they say, "Oh, but it's still complete."
This reminds me of the scene from Futurama with the orangutan. Like,
yeah, Dr.
we have the missing link. Aha, but what about before it?
Yep, yeah, Dr. Banjo. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Permission to zoom through this PowerPoint?
Yeah, sure. Leo, by the way, I got that link from the description. I'm sorry, but
the description of what?
Oh wait,
this video, the video.
I don't fit. I see Erika, PNAS, Brenda, PNAS, Otangelo, Veritas, whatever the fuck that is, Nesslig, Science News, Leophilius, PNAS, nothing else.
Information and the mind, right down at the bottom, right under.
Nope, I don't see that.
You might have to refresh.
So I have the link now. Really quick question though. Are you planning on bringing this up in our debate? Because if you don't, I probably will.
Yeah, I was planning on bringing it up, but,
okay.
But we got to talk. We have to talk tomorrow.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. We do.
And we will.
I have to go Christmas shopping soon, so I'm hoping that Immutable's out walking.
Oh,
I may just let you guys run.
Okay.
But anyway, but let's see. What else are we doing? Okay, Erika, you have a thing.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Eric.
so yeah, transitional forms, bird to dinosaurs. So if you want to show that you've, using the predictions from evolution, you're trying to show the transition between theropod dinosaurs to modern birds. You first list out both the traits that each have, so feathered non-avian dinosaur traits and modern bird traits, and that's all of the traits. And then you have to see this transition in the fossil record. You have to go from non-feathered theropods to feathered non-avian dinosaurs to the likes of Archaeopteryx to transitional birds to birds. And then here's a nice little cladogram that proposes feather type emergence from another paper from 2017. And this is exactly what I was telling Otangelo about. This is the transition that we do indeed see in the fossil record from the type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and type 5, from these proto feathers to emergent feathers. So it's like, okay, well, we'll show them. Cool. So first you've got Compsognathus. Compsognathus has absolutely nothing that denotes it being this feathered dinosaur. It doesn't have any feathers, nothing like that. But it does have a semi-unit purple.
Pause for a moment. The recent finding of the dinosaur with the birds of paradise like feathers was a Compsognathid.
Was it really a Compsognathus?
Yeah. And a Compsognathid, like a related in the family.
Right. Okay. So this specimen here, if I'm speaking correctly, is not the same specimen. But the important thing about it is that it's got a semilunate carpal, so it's got the wrist that's only seen in modern birds. So already you're starting to see in the likes of dinosaurs that are very much not considered to be birds, the wrists of birds. So here's a nice cladogram of the semilunate carpal. And then you start to see the emergence of these downy proto-looking feathers in the likes of Eosinopteryx. These guys are not flight capable. They've got this non-fused pelvis, non-keeled sacrum. Other than the downy filamental coverings and the semilunate carpal, they're still pretty dino-like. This is the one we were talking about earlier, Enchiornis. This guy is potentially a relative of Microraptor. It has primary and secondary flight feathers, but it doesn't have any of the barbules. So this is getting into your, I think, type 3, type 4 feathers. It's got the lightweight bones. It's got the still super mosaic wrist. All of these animals, by the way, are going to have a semilunate carpal. Sinosauropteryx, this one's got feathers too. It's directly related to Compsognathus. It's got these simple filament-like feathers, kind of this crocodilian-style respiratory system, and it's starting to get these lightweight and hollow bones. This guy's really important, Protarchaeopteryx, yes, I said it correctly. This one's got vein-style feathers, still not capable of flying, but guess what? This one starts to see the wishbone. This guy's got a true wishbone in its body along with the hollow bones, still got the semilunate carpal. Sinorthosaurus, sorry, this one is covered entirely in a down-like...
Sinorthosaurus. But anyway, the name doesn't really matter.
Okay, thank you so much. No, I appreciate it. I'm horrible at pronouncing dinosaur names. So this one doesn't have flight-capable feathers either, but it does have these full, real, true wings, right, with these hollow bones, the semilunate carpal, like essentially all of the traits that are... creating this amalgamation of characteristics that would have made this guy a great glider. A microcell analysis tells us we actually have the colors of its feathers, which is really cool. It's got this yellow, brownish, blackish color. It still has the wishbone. It still has the bird-like shoulder. It still has the semilunate carpal, and its pelvis is starting to transition. So what about Caudipteryx? This guy is a classic branch-off species. This thing is absolutely spending time on the ground, but look at the tip of its tail. It has this whole beautiful plume of true feathers right at the tip of its tail, potentially for something like a display. They had very, very basal-looking arm wings, not like what we saw in the last one, but they are still like primary feathers, right? It's got a pretty primitive, more heavy-boned skeleton that shows that it's kind of moving back towards that terrestrial lifestyle. But it's comparable with modern flightless birds, right? It's got this unikit ribcage process. Very few teeth that are like reducing and becoming much more simplistic in nature, and a partially reversed first toe. Bapiosaurus, the largest foreshore feathered dinosaur. You can see this beautiful plume on the back of its head. It's got more advanced down feathers. It's got arm feathers, but again, these aren't true wings. And it's got this big skull with lightweight bones, and it's continuing to transition pelvis as well as a semilunate carpal. You've got Microraptor. This individual was like four-winged and certainly capable of like at least doing some pretty sick gliding, maybe even capable of true flight, because it's got the primary and secondary flight feathers. But the interesting thing is it's got this dinosaurian skull. It's got these big, massive teeth, and its shoulders are still really primitive. So it couldn't do the full flight motion, which is why some people are like, maybe it was just a really, really good glider and not actually capable of powered flight. It also has a bony tail and a semi-fused pelvis, as well as a non-keeled sacrum. So this is like, again, one of your really big, good transitionals. Zenuon long, very similar situation. You've got these beautiful feathers coming off of the forelimbs, but no hind limb feathers. Transitioning pelvis still. It's got a tail that's analogous to Archaeopteryx, so it's not this dinosaur tail, but it's also not a bird tail. And then you've got Maylong. I like this one just because we found its death position is very similar to brooding in modern birds. And then you've got Archaeopteryx lithographica, which is a true mosaic. It's got pretty much everything in the middle, right? It's got a bony tail that's short compared to all modern theropods, unserrated teeth, a fully reversed big toe, and a wishbone fused collarbone and modern bird shoulders with unique flight feather symmetry, suggesting that it could probably fly. But like a dinosaur, it's got a bony tail, a perforated skull with teeth, dinosaur-style vertebra and shoulders, gastralia, a transitioning pelvis that's still more similar to that we see in theropods, like tyrannosaurs theropods, and a theropod ankle with a short halix. So then you've got this nice arm transition thing here that shows some like sort of Compsognathus style dinosaurs, Archaeopteryx, and like pigeons. And then you have additional transitions from Archaeopteryx to modern birds, right? You've got Rahanavis. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Just wanted to play devil's advocate with one of Otangelo's, not really questions, but statements. But yeah, but this just shows a common designer.
No, because these are separated by immense amounts of geologic time. It's morphologic change over geologic time. And the important part is that makes this truly transitional, Otangelo, is neither you nor any of the professionals can draw a line in which one is a bird, the bird group, the bird kind, and one is the dinosaur, the theropod dinosaurs, the theropod dinosaur kind. It's a smooth gradient, a smooth transition. And because we can not only show the transition in the fossil record, but we can imitate it in the lab, what you have here is a damn near perfect example of what evolution looks like. I mean, this guy right here, look at the skull. That looks like a little T-Rex skull. And yet, this animal was teeny tiny, little itty-bitty guy, and capable of true flight. Same thing with this guy, right? It's got those weird dinosaurian-style snout and teeth and all that stuff. A Pago style rather than a bony tail, so that's pretty derived. Clawed wings. All of these traits are incredibly basal to modern birds, but they still are bird-like. Seornis, same thing.
By the way, just to chime in here, the real problem with the common design versus common ancestry is how do we know what is common design versus common ancestor? Where do we draw that distinction, and how do we possibly know? So basically, as Dr. Dan said, the common seems unfalsifiable assertion. But there's
100% true. You cannot differentiate what is design and what is this weird creationist style fast evolution within the family.
And also,
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. And also, we can also use the molecular clock to actually date when this transition should have happened, and it matches perfectly with what we see in the fossil record. And
also the common design it's just ad hoc. It's just it's also unfalsifiable because only evolution predicted this. This design did not predict this at all.
And by the way, if you want to know
can I provide?
And if you want to know how you have a true transitional fossil, take it to the creationists and say, "Hey, is this or that?" Because there are many fossils where the creationists themselves can't decide if it's one way or the other.
Yeah, all of the creationists disagree. The big creationist Chad organizations, none of them can agree which of these members are true birds and which are dinosaurs. They can't figure out which are which. So, you if you're trying to disprove, right, the evolution here, what you've got to do is create the suites of criteria, the suites of characteristics that only birds fit and the ones that only theropod dinosaurs fit. But people have been trying to do it for over a century. It can't be done.
Like that Dino did a review of two people from AIG. Like one was Michael Denton, who says that Velociraptor is a bird, and the other one, I don't remember his name. He says that Velociraptor is a dinosaur.
Yep. Yeah. Dapper Dino knows this way better than I do, but he did tell me that my PowerPoint was mostly correct. So I feel comfortable showing it to you guys. And, you know, you got all those guys. This is the last one that I was just going to show. This is just a bird with teeth and still some like more primitive traits. And then you've got modern birds, which are an incredibly diverse and successful group of animals.
I offer a comment.
Leo, you should shut your video off. You're
Really
robotic. Quick.
Okay, wait. How do I stop? Okay, here it is.
Just let me know when I'm not robotic
Can you screen
anymore.
share me for a moment, or the full-time screen sharing? Like this is the compsognated that I was talking about. Like if you.
So, how many of you were out at that Las Vegas conference, Creation Week?
I don't know what that was.
Who the fuck has been traveling at all during any of this? If you have been, you're dumb.
Well, that's why over everybody's head. Otangelo said that all the birds were created during Creation Week, and I think it's a conference in Las Vegas, Creation Week. I don't know what he's talking about.
So
anyway,
am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay, can I make a comment on this link to Otangelo's personal blog on why no creation?
Oh, you're
This is
breaking up again.
Yeah.
You got to cut out your video, I think.
Prize for disproving evolution. I'm probably not going to cut out my video. It's not my fault that a strong internet connection can't.
You're just not working.
Oh, I stopped sharing.
Okay. Did you link that paper or whatever you were sharing so that we can
I linked it. Yes.
Oh, in private chat?
In comments.
Oh.
A while back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I already got that one from you. Anyway, we're apparently, what are we waiting for?
I just wanted to make a comment on
go ahead.
But that apparently can't happen because
we can't hear you.
That's when you have fiber optic.
No, sorry, Leo. This won't work like this. I'm sorry. It's really bad.
So, Erika, you had some pictures from a book in that PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
What was that book?
That book is actually, oh gosh, I think that is What the Fossils Say and Why It Matters by Prothero.
Oh, okay. I think I have that somewhere.
It's I'm almost positive that it's from that one.
Okay.
But it also could be from Why Evolution is True by Coyne.
Okay.
I've got a lot. I cribbed many diagrams.
I know I have that one. Okay, I will take a look.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I mean, therein lies the challenge for Otangelo, and why I presume he doesn't want to address the paleontology, right? Because evolution predicts slow morphologic change over geologic time. It predicts that what we should see is a change in the gradient of traits, the suite of derived characteristics that theropod dinosaurs have versus what birds have, and we should see that occur, slowly through the strata. And then that should be recapitulated, capable of being recapitulated in the lab. And all of those things are true.
Yeah, it goes back to the question that I kept asking him over and over again, and he absolutely refused to answer. As when he says we have no evidence, then what would that evidence be? Because we have all this stuff that we call evidence, and they keep saying, oh, that's not evidence. It's like, what would evidence be, Otangelo? Please tell us that much.
He doesn't know.
I don't know if you missed the beginning, Erika. I came up with like a hypothetical. In 2010, we started capturing the genomes of many plants and animals, and if we keep doing that, and we have like a population of insects, we have their genome. we wait for 100 years until 2110, and we notice that there is a new organ basically sprouting out of the side of one of these things, where the halteres have been modified, so that's now a sensory organ, and we have a different species, and we capture that genome, and then we look at the difference in the genes. Would that be evidence for them? I think something like that could happen in 100 years, but that's really pushing it. We're looking at more like 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, for insects, but what do you think of that? I mean, that is something that we're going to be able to do in the next 100 years.
I mean, I think what it's going to become then, really and truly, is the same argument that I see. I think it's Mitchell, one of the brain trust guys in the chat, who brings up all the time, which is, if we created life in the lab because we created it using intelligence to fine tune the environment, what that would actually be is evidence for intelligent design, and thus what that tells me is that there is nothing that would constitute.
And we can counter them. We can counter them by saying
body farms proof. Body farms proofs. I'm sorry. Oh,
we can counter them by saying that we have no evidence of intelligent design because that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So they have no evidence for intelligent design.
Well, I mean, I would agree.
I was saying, like, by that logic, body farms would prove that every corpse is a homicide.
Right. I mean, I totally agree. Yeah. Like, you can't point to a culprit as some kind of new mechanism, right, without a precedent to do so.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I mean, and I say that, but that's also just like how the scientific method works. Like, you have to have a reason to suspect or even propose a certain hypothesis, and saying that something looks designed is not sufficient, because I can go out into some of the beautiful, gorgeous national parks in the southwestern United States, and I can walk up to one of these naturally formed arches, and I can say, holy shit, this looks just like the arches that we make. Yep. It must have been designed, when what really happened was it was the product of nature and time.
Am I smooth?
And I find someone sitting there with a chisel and a hammer, and he says, hey, don't you like this sick arch that I made? Then I might say, okay, sure. Did you tell me how you made the arch? But that's not what we have, unfortunately, for some of these folks.
I think you're smooth, Leo.
Yeah. So when I went to my Wi-Fi, the mobile data thing was on, and I shut it off, even though I'm connected to the internet. It shouldn't have a problem. But from Otangelo's blog on why no creationist has received the Nobel Prize for disproving evolution, he writes, a 10-year-old can prove abiogenesis or macroevolution is false. It's no big accomplishment. So he's essentially saying that, well, we already know that it's false to the point that they're not going to give a Nobel Prize for it, which just isn't the case. It's not false, and nobody's been able to show that. He also says, and the Nobel Prize is worthless and repeatedly given to terrorists like Yasser Arafat and do-nothings like Obama, except that they haven't won Nobel Prizes. They've won Nobel Peace Prizes, which have fucking nothing to do with Nobel Prizes in science, which are not worthless. They are the single most reputable prizes that you can fucking win. This is nothing but trying to dismiss the fact that nobody's gotten one for disproving evolution, because nobody's disproved evolution.
It's called poisoning the well, what he did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also, hold on a moment. Like Otangelo says, cells act as chemical factories, taking in materials from the environment, processing them, and producing finished goods. By that definition, hurricanes are machines or factories, because they take in water vapor and producing rain.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing behind the recent trope that has been coming out of a lot of the creationist folks here online, that like evolutionary science is bad or bogus or doesn't contribute anything, and it's like I've been searching for PhDs to apply to over the past couple of weeks, and the number of PhDs that are for things like evolutionary medicine or pathology or virology, and what they studies of pathology or virology. That require backgrounds and understanding of how organisms react to their environment over time, because of just how important it is to developing medicines. It tells me that what's actually going on here is like this weird vitriol for the concept of being monkey. rather than like an actual argument that evolutionary biology has no place in science when it informs all of biology.
Yeah, Hollywood was a extremely racist toward monkeys in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And so that and I wonder if that was connected to the idea of I don't know, but a lot of people I mean they're always disparaging about monkeys. They're pretty damn smart.
No, I know. Yeah. I mean, I don't 100% get it myself, but I'm also a tiny bit biased.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're related to monkeys. So
Yep.
we know that.
Well, it's I don't know. The thing is that I hate it for Otangelo because he's clearly put so much work into this, and like he's capable of doing these literature searches, and I wonder why it is. Like it's very similar to me to my concern rather is very similar to my concern about like John Maddox's weird big research document, of which I am almost finished, and something that I have said to him in conversations that he has not respectfully I guess I would say reputably defended against would be the idea that he reads these papers and he sees that the abstract says there's a problem and he runs with that without reading the conclusion, the results, or the methodology, which say here's the solution to the proposed problem. And I don't understand. I worry that Otangelo is doing something of the same thing, where he says, look at all these papers that say abio hasn't been solved, and here's all these issues with it, and here's all of the of the things that would potentially preclude it. But then instead, what we actually see when we go and look at these papers is proposed solutions to all of these things. And that's my concern there.
I also wanted to point out that Otangelo is committing a black swan fallacy. He says, human or not is not the point. The point is that we know what intelligence can do, which non-intelligence can't. How do you know non-intelligence can't do it? You haven't seen it happen. You haven't seen non-intelligence do it. That doesn't mean it can't. That's just like saying the only swans I've ever seen are white, therefore black swans. So it's just a black swan fallacy.
Somebody is in the back room, Otangelo, and I would like the panel to vote on whether or not we should put him in the front room.
Oh, Otangelo wants to come in and chat?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
I don't really care at all. I mean, I don't ever want people to feel like that their voices are being silenced. My concern is that it's going to be a rehash of a conversation that I've seen a million times over with Otangelo.
Same shit, different day, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, this is complex and it can't be explained. So a magical anthropomorphic immortal that doesn't actually exist anywhere or for any amount of time. It isn't made of anything. It is like completely incapable of being differentiated from non-existence. Must have done it, but I couldn't tell you how or when or why. I don't have anything that positively indicates this or that can be corroborated against this, but it happened. 100%. 100%. P.
Before we get started on that, Nesslig, did you want to say something if you need to head out?
Oh no, but I still I do have to go now because it's now over 1 a.m. here, so I need to go to bed.
Oh no, Nesslig, get some rest.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's always good to chat with you.
Peace out.
Okay. Peace out.
See ya.
Okay, Erika. I just came in quickly. I don't want to concentrate the entire conversation about what I say. So I would like just to say this to you. I am not very much into fossils. That is your specialty. And I pretty much respect what you do. And I think you have a very good grasp and knowledge about all these things, which I don't have. So I am keen and open to consider a little bit more what you can provide me in regards of information which points to evolution using the fossil record. And in the other side, I am more, I think my past studies in the last few years have been more on a molecular level. That means how actually are organisms built? What are the mechanisms on a molecular level? And I think it is very important first to understand how organisms are built, how they develop. And from there, you can then actually try to understand how eventually a transition from an organismal form to another could have occurred. And I think on that, eventually, I can provide some input.
Okay,
You can consider if that is interesting for you or not.
Yeah.
Otangelo, we know a great deal about embryological development and how things form. In fact, we know more about that, I think, than any other field of genetics. We know a lot about it. So it isn't like we don't know. And we know how the steps are. We know what small steps cause big changes. So we know this.
So can I say something real fast, Speed? First of all, I really appreciate that, Otangelo. I do. I appreciate that a lot, really, because I oftentimes get some shade thrown at me for the focus that I at least find interesting, which is to say the paleontology. And again, to be very clear, I study extant primates, so my degree is not in. I have a minor in anthropology, but my degree is not by and large in paleontology. So, but I really do appreciate that a lot, and I'm not averse to having a conversation by any means. I've just shared some of the concerns that I have in the chat. Something I want to say really quickly with regard to kind of my stance on what it is that you kind of just said there. To me, the molecular is indeed very important, 100%. But so is documenting the macroscopic change, that we see on a more blunt level, if you will. The analogy that I would make is if we look at the pyramids that the Egyptians made, right? This is just an analogy, kind of a crude analogy at that, but look at the pyramids that the Egyptians made. And for a long time, people, said things like, okay, this is insane. How did they do that? How is it possible that these guys have made these pyramids? It seems impossible with their technology, with what they had at their disposal. My mistake. It seems impossible that they could have done this. Surely they had help from someone, and then you get the weird, whack jobs with the ancient aliens, or some people say that they had additional help from other people,
extraterrestrials,
whatever. Yeah, whatever. But what no one is actually arguing in that case is that the pyramids weren't built. So from my standpoint, when I look at the change that we see in the paleontological record, what we're seeing, or paleontologic record, again, my mistake, what we see is change. The debate isn't over whether or not the change happened, in my opinion. The argument could be, okay, well, how did it happen? And that's where the importance of molecular genetics and things like that comes in. But no one would look at the pyramids and say they couldn't have been built, because there they are, built. There is the change in the fossil record. There it is, before our very eyes. It's present. So the question can be, okay, how did it happen? But I don't think that we can make the statement that it didn't happen. I hope that was succinct.
Well, I think by itself, this is already a very interesting conversation and a very interesting topic, Erika, about what actually is the best line of evidence to be pursued to understand if evolution on a macro scale happened or didn't happen. And I advocate that the molecular mechanisms are the most relevant issues. You are saying that fossils are, and as I said previously, that is already a very interesting topic, and I am keen to listen what you have to say in regards of that. And we can go even through the literature in regards of this. And I mean, there is also phylogeny, the phylogeny evidence, and there are various lines of reasoning which eventually converge to a conclusion. But I am, as I said, I am open to consider a little bit more fossils, and I would encourage you also to give a look on the molecular level, because I think we have powerful evidence there that the mechanisms, they have to be prescribed.
I think that's fair enough as a statement. I think that it would be fun to have a conversation, like if it was something like this, really and truly, where we're both kind of coming at it from, let me present where I'm coming from, and kind of go from there. I would have to request from your end, again, the molecular stuff, while I know tangentially some stuff about it, it's certainly not my specialty. And if we were to have this conversation, I would come at it from my end of like, I want this to be something that is digestible, because I don't think there's any use in overwhelming someone else with like technical jargon if nothing can be conveyed. And I think that goes on both ends. Like I find that when you're having a debate with someone, not you specifically, but when two individuals are having a debate and it's like who can out terminology the other person, I find those to be somewhat worthless as conversations. But I think that there are a lot of folks here on this panel who do know the molecular stuff quite a bit more than me. So while I would love to have that conversation, I think I'd love to hear, what you have to say on that. I think as far as who's going to give you a good debate or a good discussion with regards to offering up counters to your points at the molecular level, you're going to find folks in this panel here, or guys like Immutable, can give you a better run for your money.
I have been studying developmental biology, Otangelo, and I think I can talk to you about that.
Well, Erika, first of all, it is never my aim to humiliate my opponent or my discussion partner. I think that is a ridiculous endeavor. My aim is to establish good conversations which can be productive for all sides. And I think if someone really understands a topic, then that person is able to formulate complex issues in a manner that it is comprehensible, even for someone which doesn't have such an insight and deeper understanding of a topic. And if someone doesn't have that knowledge, then he will stick to the technical jargon and probably not understand it either. So I think it is possible to formulate an overarching explanation why molecular mechanisms point to eventually one source or cause as a better explanation than the other.
I think that it could be an interesting conversation. I 100% agree with that. I want to be clear, just so you know where I'm coming from. I don't think that there is a single line of evidence that is the best with regard to support for or against evolutionary theory or abiogenesis. I think that considering the preponderance of data and looking at studies in a plurality is just as important as the specifics. And I think that we tend to run into problems in these kinds of discussion where everyone wants to have a huge macro discussion where it's like, let's discuss the idea, the concepts, the philosophy behind this. And then on the other hand, you get down into the weeds on very specific studies. And I think that's why a single discussion tends to not do these kinds of ideas justice. But that's kind of my 2 cents where I'm coming from on this. I would love to kind of give you my position on that. Let me ask you, and someone, I guess I've never asked you this in particular, Otangelo, because I always just assumed, are you a young Earth creationist or an old Earth creationist?
He's young.
Yes, I'm a young Earth creationist, but let me just respond to you. What biology and biochemistry has taught me, Erika, is to be humble. Because the more that we study, the more we recognize how complex life is and how little that we actually understand. And I think that goes to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, God, the coolest part to me about science and why I wanted to get involved with doing research in the first place is for that exact reason. How fortunate are we to live in a time when not everything is discovered, right? There's so much to learn. There's so much to explore. And there's something very romantic to me about not knowing, the 1% of it, let alone the half of it, right? There's so much to really get into. But to me, I don't find the lack of certainty in some of this stuff to be like stymieing in the sense that if we can't know it all, we can't know any of it. I think
I'm not saying that. Actually, I am very strong defendant of intelligent design based on what we actually already do know. But what we already do know, he gives a hint to that what we don't know is actually much more than what we already know. So I think that Saul made a very interesting point in a recent stream where he said that science in the next forthcoming 10 years will have major unraveling on what happens on a molecular level. And I completely agree with him, especially in regards of epigenetic languages, upon which we have still a very shallow understanding about how they work, where they are stored, and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think that's really, God, it's so exciting, right? Like, it's really exciting to think about the things that we're going to kind of uncover and really start to tease apart in the next decade. Every decade is more exciting than the last, it seems, with regard to what we're discovering and learning more about. As with regard to intelligent design, I think when you have a larger scale discussion on intelligent design, I think it's imperative that we parse out the difference between what kind of intelligent design you're coming from, which is kind of why I asked whether or not you were a young or an old Earth creationist, because I tend to sympathize a lot more with the likes of like theistic evolutionists in particular, who come from a standpoint of like, okay, what do we see? They kind of square their faith with what we see in the fossil record and geology and physics and chemistry and basically all of conventional science. And they cram down the impossibility, the incredulity, just to abio, right? Like, they tend to come to, or even the fine-tuned, quote unquote, conditions that would lead to an abiogenesis event. And I can respect that, because I that was the position that I used to come at it from, for one, so I'm a little bit biased. But also because when you've got such a massive undertaking like figuring out the origin of life, I think that you can more easily come to terms with coping with those unknowns with kind of a theological answer when put up against the likes of like OEC or YEC, where it's like they're not coming at it from my position, from where I'm standing. It's not, we don't know this, therefore maybe God. It's all of what we see is an incorrect interpretation. The folks that have spent centuries collectively on figuring out how radioactive decay works, or how faunal succession works, or what kind of changes require you to get from species A to species B on a morphologic and molecular level. And I tend to be a bit more prickly towards the YEC group on that, because very frequently I'll encounter folks, and once we get into the weeds on the topic, it becomes evident to me, right, that what's happening is a complete disregard for that work in favor of, we don't know abio, therefore young Earth creationism. So I think that if we're gonna have a discussion on intelligent design, and you're a young Earth creationist too, I think you have to come at it from a standpoint, at least if the two of us are going to have a conversation, that's, yes, intelligent design is justified as a hypothesis, but also so is young Earth creationism. And I think that's going to be a lot harder of a sell, at least for me. Sorry for the monologue.
Well, I think, Erika, that if we are starting to talk about molecular biology, then the quest about if the age is 6,000 years old or 4 billion years old, it will be irrelevant.
Oh, I disagree. I wholly disagree, because really? Yeah, the nature of evolution over intelligent design is it by definition requires these vast amounts of geologic time. Therefore, the age of the Earth is imperative to include in any discussion if you're defending evolutionary theory.
Well, first of all, as I said previously, Erika, in order to even start to talk about evolution, and if evolution is a better explanation of biodiversity rather than intelligent design, you need actually to understand how complex organisms are built. That is primordial. And if you
why do you think we don't understand that?
I am not saying that we don't understand that. I am just laying out that is the basic in order to make a hypothesis if the transition from one organismal form to another through evolutionary mechanisms is a capable explanation or not.
So, which two organisms are you talking about?
Any.
So to touch very briefly on that, that's why I brought up the example of the pyramids. You don't have to know every single stepwise specific of how something was built, or in the case of evolution, how one organism begets another through a sequence of changes across a lineage, to know that it happened, right? Like looking at the pyramids and saying this is a megalithic structure that must have been very difficult to build. Boy, it sure is going to be interesting to figure out how they did it, is different from approaching the pyramids and saying couldn't have been built. What we're looking at doesn't exist.
I think that your pyramid analogy is not, you cannot use that as an analogy in regards of what we see in biology.
Why not?
Because it is a different situation. When you see a pyramid, you know automatically it was made by humans. So you do not have different options. In regards of biology, however, we have two competing hypotheses. We have on the one side evolution and on the other side intelligent design. And in order to say that one mechanism is a better explanation than the other, as I said previously, first we need to understand actually what mechanisms that are in place.
So what are the mechanisms for intelligent design?
Intelligence.
How does that work?
That is another question.
No, you literally just said the mechanisms are relevant here. So what is the mechanism for intelligent design? Evolutionary theory has mechanisms. We've observed them. We've documented them. So what are the mechanisms for intelligent design?
As I responded, intelligence, intelligent action.
Well, intelligence isn't a mechanism. Intelligence is the thing that acts on mechanisms to create things. So what is the mechanism that the intelligence uses?
We know that intelligence has we know that I, for example, can use my intelligence to move my arm. We do not know
intelligence. You need your arm too.
You need physical stuff. You need materials. You need an arm to move. You need electrical signals in the brain. All of that.
The fact that I do not know how God is capable of instantiate the universe and life.
Why is that different than us not knowing exactly how abiogenesis happened or exactly what the steps are between, say, a fly and a beetle?
Well, the entire issue, Speed, here is what is the range and capability of intelligence doing compared to what unguided in regards of abiogenesis unguided mechanisms are capable of doing, and then you compare each other and you look what there is in question, what we see in nature, and then you can actually evaluate if an unguided mechanism is a more adequate
what we see in nature is that anything that uses intelligence to design something has a body. It has and what you're thinking of mostly is something with fingers. And basically, you're thinking about human beings. You have to show us basically how that happened.
So let me present to perhaps what, from Otangelo's perspective, might be a more apt analogy than pyramids. So let's say Otangelo, that we finally man a mission to Mars, like put humans on Mars, right? And you're on that mission, and once you reach Mars or any planet, let's say exoplanet A, so that we don't taint it with our opinions about Mars. So let's say we finally man a mission and you reach this new planet, exoplanet A, and you're one of the astronauts that's exploring it. So you get off the spacecraft and you're looking around, and there's no sign of any life here. You take soil samples. There have been probes that have orbited the planet, and we don't think that there's anything living there. And you're walking along, and all of a sudden you encounter in this vast, gorgeous canyon on this alien planet an archway. And you're looking at this archway, and everyone says, "Holy cow! The winds here are really strong. It's pretty insane that they managed to carve this archway." And then another member of your party turns around and said, "No, this archway was carved by someone." So if you got these two competing hypotheses, right, one of which is saying the archway was carved by someone, an intelligence, and their basis is because archways are something intelligent humans make in our architecture at home, on our home planet of Earth. And another person is saying, no, actually what we're actually looking at is something that nature formed. The way that you would differentiate between those two is very, very different. You would first say, okay, if someone made this, perhaps if you're questioning your fellow astronaut, you might say, well, if someone made this, why aren't they here? Why don't we see any trace of them on this planet? We don't see them anywhere. This planet seems really lifeless. And why don't we find the tools here, right? And then they say, okay, well, maybe an alien did it in their spaceship with a bunch of lasers. And then you say, but there's no precedent for that. Why would you say that? We don't even know aliens exist. How could you say that an alien came here and formed this this arch with a laser on their spaceship when what we know does currently occur, which is that wind can't carve, these arches if, the angles are appropriate, and all of those factors are present on this planet. Why would you argue, that an intelligence did it instead? And so from my position, that's where I'm coming from for arguing an intelligent designer over change over time, because we don't have a precedent to argue that a designer does exist. We know that nature can create things that look like what humans have designed. And the most important fact is we know that there are mechanisms on Earth that can account with appropriate amounts of time for the changes that we see in organisms.
Okay, I think that boils down, Erika, to the question, how do we recognize design? And I think that the best metaphor or exemplification of what we are talking about is, what if on that planet you see a city and full of factories and manufacturing parks and machines and blueprints which make these machines and factories. What would you think is the best explanation? That an intelligent alien aliens made these cities and factories and machines and so forth, or that it was a natural process?
Okay, I need to respond to that.
Okay, Steve, while you do that, I'm going to order some chicken
analogy fallacy.
Okay, in Erika's example, basically, she's talking about, we see this arch and it's intricately carved and it's all proportional and symmetrical. And we know of lasers and we know of tools and we know all of these things, all of these little mechanisms that could have gone into designing that. So we can extrapolate from that and say, hey, it must have been an alien landing on this planet that designed it. It must have been an intelligence, and it must have been an intelligence with a body, with machines and with capability to design things, okay? In the same fashion, when we talk to you about molecular biology and developmental biology and embryology, we can show you all of those things, all of those little steps that can add up to this creation of life. We can show you the same thing, except that it has no intelligent designer. We can show you the step going from one gene to another, the mutations. So that is how I would answer that. And what you fail to, you don't accept those small steps, so you can't see the whole picture. Okay. But when you talk about factories and buildings and all of that, you are doing exactly that. You're thinking of all these small steps of bricklayers being out there and people hoisting beams and building things. So you are basically deferring to those small steps. Why don't you acknowledge that we are doing the same thing? And before I end, I have got to go, guys. So I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave you all in the room, and Immutable is going to pop in shortly. But I have got to get going.
Hopefully so.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. I just wanted to say, I wanted to say also, Otangelo, it's you missing the view of those small steps that we have. That is our entire disagreement, and those would be the tools and the fingers and methodology for developing, something intelligently. So, okay, I'm out, guys. I'll see you all later.
Thanks for hosting this speed. Yeah.
Yeah, just give me 2 minutes too.
Okay, I've got to get going here in a minute too, because these wings are probably 20 minutes out. Andrew,
do the wings have feathers?
hopefully these ones lack them. Andrew, you said in the side thing that you wanted to ask a question about fossils real quick.
Oh yeah. So you were mentioning transitional fossil forms earlier, and it got me thinking about like this stepwise acquisition of traits, kind of like showing a nested hierarchy. And I wanted to ask you, I kind of saw, and I feel like this ties back into what I was asking earlier about irreducible complexity, which was that earlier, or one professor I talked to, for instance, gave me this or linked to me this paper where I presume a different professor called what he termed what he called lineage explanations. Like you can like, for instance, the eye, and how going from left to right, you can see how each stage builds upon the other, and you can see a picture of the primitive eye on the other side. You can see the picture of the more complex version of the eye, and that's essentially a lineage explanation of how the eye developed through evolution. And I want to ask, is that basically the same for transitional forms except in terms of phylogenies?
I would say that it's similar. Phylogenetic inertia, which is kind of similar to what you're talking about. It's the phylogenetic inertia is usually applied more in ecology, but the concept is very similar. It's this idea of retaining basal traits simply because selection isn't acting really on them in any way. They're neutral. They don't really do anything bad, but they don't really do anything good either. So they tend to stick around. And this concept of phylogenetic inertia can be helpful with regard to the transitional species. And what you're talking about is kind of true. But I think what's more important isn't looking necessarily at how a single trait is changing over time with regard to the transitions, but rather the suites of characteristics. And this is really an important concept that I think creationists get wrong a lot, and people in general tend to too. A transitional species doesn't have to be in the direct lineage to be considered transitional, because what we're looking at is the gradient of change between the group of characteristics in species A to species B.
Okay.
Which is why oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a big problem with that is that creationists don't understand what nuance is or what gradients is. It's either this or it's that, but there is no in between. There can't be any in between. Haha, God did it, you're wrong.
Well, unfortunately, too, I don't encounter a great many creationists that are down with the fact that species are genuinely just this arbitrary concept that help us categorize life.
They try to use that against us, like, well, we don't even really know how to define a species. Well, of course not, because we invented that classification. Yep. It's arbitrary, and because of that, it's not going to apply in every scenario, or there might be places where it's like, it's a little fuzzy here.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, like, the biological species concept is something that there's a healthy amount of complaint for, and I can kind of sympathize with that. Like, it really sucks that we can't just have like these really nice clean lines between what is and is not a species. Yeah. And I wish it were different, but that's not the reality that we live in. And those lines tend to be super blurry, which people don't like.
Yeah, and that's what I think it is. I think, and this isn't an attack on creationists. This is just, I've never been a creationist. The closest to a creationist that I've ever been is an evolutionary creationist, because I just don't deny blatant science. But I was guilty of this, is that, and I just lost my thought. Son of a
Oh, I hate
that. Oh, man. Yeah, it happens to me frequently because of my autism. And then, boom, it's just gone out of nowhere. It just disappeared. Must have been God.
While you're thinking of that, Leo, so just to clarify on my original question, Erika, so you're basically saying, and this kind of reminded me of something Neil Shubin once said in a podcast. If you know who Neil Shubin is, probably.
Oh yeah. Love Shubin. Okay. He's a really cool guy.
Okay. So he said that what he's looking for in transitions is degrees of cousinness, I think he put it. And is that basically what you're saying, that instead of, like I was saying, lineage explanations, you're saying it's more so phylogenetic explanations, like we're building a phylogeny just in a different way using fossils instead of DNA sources or whatnot?
Yes, I feel comfortable saying that. You can get a little bit messy with creating any kind of steadfast phylogeny in like paleontology, just because it's one of those deals where as soon as you find a new specimen, like little aspects of the phylogeny can change. Particularly when you're finding something that turns out to be quite a bit older than it was previously, or than it was thought to be previously, because that has huge implications on who is contemporaneous with whom and how traits can proliferate in a population. But yeah, I think degrees of cousinness with Gibbon is wholly correct. I mean, he works with a lot of the Sarcopterygian to the tetrapod transition, and the interesting thing about that is that once you start to see tetrapods get up on land, this is just a boom for diversification for them on land. I mean, you see them with all different kinds of digit numbers. You see them with all different kinds of strategies in kind of overall body plan. And the idea with that isn't to create this perfect stepwise, this became this, became this, became this.
Right.
It's to say, pick two arbitrary species. Let's say you pick Eusthenopteron and any like Dimetrodon, I guess, any standard classic true 100% tetrapod. The idea would be to say, all right, we've got this suite of characteristics that are exclusive to Eusthenopteron, and then we've got these new characteristics in Dimetrodon. What species span that change in those gradient of traits, right? So in, it could be one would be digit number, digit number. So you could say, all right, well, can we bridge that gap through the fossil record? And this is something that we can do because the fossil record is inherently going to be incomplete, unfortunately. So if you can show that gradient of change through geologic time, you've got this great step towards showing what a transition truly is. This transition has indeed occurred. And that's why being contemporaneous can kind of throw a wrench into some of those exact dates. But what you're saying is true. It's degrees of cousinness, not begetting a specific lineage.
Right. It's taking a bunch of species and finding intermediate stages in between them such that this nested hierarchical pattern is formed. That's basically what transitions are for, correct?
Yes, and it's showing gradients in suites, not specific characteristics per se. So, for instance, in I specialize in hominids, obviously. I know primates, and thus am tangentially pretty familiar with the hominin evolution. But so the suites of characteristics that differentiate anatomically modern Homo sapiens from something like Ardipithecus ramidus, right, would be certain anatomical structures that pertain to efficient bipedality. So the angle of the knee, the bowl shape of the pelvis, the length of the vertebral column, the inline big toe, and the location of the foramen magnum, for instance. And all of those things have to change to get an Ardipithecus ramidus to something that looks like Homo sapiens. But something that's important to remember is they're not all changing at the same rate, which is why you can get something like, obviously Australopithecus afarensis, which is something that is somewhere in between the two of them, right? And its toe is more in line, but not totally in line. But the ratio of the arms to the legs and the vertebral column is still really basal. So it's showing this gradient of change with the understanding that not all the traits are going to be changing at the same time, at the same rate. My mistake.
Right.
So creating that kind of sweeping gradient of the group of traits is the most important. And in fact, human evolution is greatly flawed in that it's the only group of, or the only specialty of paleontology that kind of tries to make this direct line. And it's because we can do it to a certain degree, thanks to how genetics or how DNA preserves. So we can say with certainty, right, that humans do descend from Homo heidelbergensis, which did descend, from Homo erectus, and you can do that with molecular clocks and with DNA and stuff like that. But once you get past like Homo habilis and into the kind of the Australopithecines, you can say, okay, yes, we share a common ancestor with the Australopithecines. We probably descend from something that was very Australopithecine-like. But to say that we know the specifics of which one it was, in my opinion, is kind of it doesn't really matter.
So it's essentially testing the I don't even know if this is a word, the parsimoniousness of a tree when we don't know how parsimonious the actual tree is. It's like testing the actual, I guess, order of events when we don't know the actual order, if that's what you're saying.
Yes, but contrary to popular belief, that is something that can be done, assuming you have multiple trees. So if you have multiple different trees, you can come up with the most likely tree given a set of morphologic characteristics using like Bayesian analyses and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can, and the cool thing about that is the more morphologic characteristics you get, more fossil specimens you get, the more certain you can be in that phylogeny. And that same thing goes for, pretty much all of paleontology and all of those phylogenies that you're trying to construct.
So transitional forms in the fossil record kind of fit more in line with parsimony analysis the best. Is that correct?
Yes, I feel comfortable saying if I'm understanding you correctly, and I think I am, I would agree with that statement. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I love excuses to talk about this stuff. But my wings are almost here, so I have to let everyone go. Otangelo,
Where'd you get your wings from?
I got them from a place called Just Wings.
Okay, yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, so I think it's a local place. My fiance actually ordered them, so he I'm not wearing my glasses, so he had to come very, very close to show me where he was ordering the wings from.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Erika. I had a blast talking to you.
Yeah, as always, it's my pleasure. Otangelo, email me. I think we could have a productive conversation at some point, so, assuming that we can kind of get out front where we're both coming from. And with that, I will let you guys go. Ta.
See you,
Okay.
Erika.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.
So
Yeah.
what now? I'm not sure if
leaving
Mutable
You can
also.
go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
What's that?
See you.
Oh, peace out. I guess Immutable isn't going to be coming in, would be my assumption.
Yeah.
He was
I think I
supposed to be
got
coming in,
head
but he's
out
not.
as well soon.
That's fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's only about an hour and 15 minutes until this debate between Sal and T-Jump starts, so.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today, Leo. Talk to you next time.
No problem. Yep, peace out.